Chapter 1181. Although Zhao Lu requested not to do it at home, the place he chose was not too far away. It was next to the flower bed downstairs in the neighborhood, and it was a place where he could see his own balcony. The police only knew that Wang Liang had gotten a sum of money from Zhang Xiaoqin, but because there was no evidence left, they couldn't file a case. They began to learn more about Wang Liang from Zhao Lu. Zhao Li's expression was complicated. Before the accident, my sister loved this man very much, and Wang Liang was a guy who knew how to please people. At first, I didn't like him, but later, he kept helping us and appeared at our house. Over time, I let down my guard against him, but I didn't expect that this scumbag not only had my sister, but also had several girlfriends outside. One of them even gave birth to his child, but they haven't registered their marriage yet. He cheated money from women? Lin Feng frowned. Zhao Lu nodded. It's not just my sister. As far as I know, the other women have also spent a lot of money on Wang Liang over the years. Actually, I've tried to persuade my sister several times, but she didn't listen. I had no choice, and I couldn't keep an eye on her all the time. My sister's life is more difficult, and it's probably because of this that she has some expectations for the so-called love of money. Shaking his head, Zhao Lu sighed. Later, Wang Liang's matter came out. Actually, it wasn't my sister who found out, but one of his women outside. In the end, she found all the women around Wang Liang, including my sister, one by one. In the end, they all realized that they had been cheated by Wang Liang. Then why did your sister do it? Zhao Lu clenched his fists, then loosened them. She couldn't get over it, so she went to look for Wang Liang several times. In the end, she was humiliated and came back crying. Her savings were gone, and so were her feelings. That night, I came back a little late. When I came back downstairs, I saw her on the ground. She had jumped off the building. She was saved later, but she probably won't be able to walk for the rest of her life. That's about her situation. Zhao Lu looked at Lin Feng. About Wang Liang, this is all I know. As for his personal information, such as where he lives and what he does for a living, I believe you can also find out, or have already found out. Lin Feng looked at his colleagues and frowned. I still have a few questions. Go ahead. Zhao Lu sighed. Lin Feng said, do you know Wang Liang's other women? Their names, contact information, or addresses will do. I'm not sure. Zhao Lu shook his head. I think there's someone called Wu Rong. She was also the one who found out about Wang Liang and stirred things up. Lin Feng nodded and recorded the name. Then he suddenly asked, then when did your sister commit suicide? Zhao Li's pupils contracted slightly. Lin Feng could only say, we just want to eliminate your sister's suspicions if possible. Zhao Lu turned his face away. Last year, November 7th, Lin Feng nodded. According to the information he got from the landlord, Wang Liang should have gone missing after December. Then he asked, Zhao Lu, what about you? What have you been doing all this time? What do you mean? Zhao Lu turned his head and looked a little emotional. Calm down. Lin Feng took a deep breath. We are not targeting you. We just have to ask these questions. Zhao Lu took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, as if he was trying to control his emotions. Yes, after my sister's accident, I have been taking care of her in the hospital and running between school and school. Zhao Lu said reluctantly. If you still think I'm suspicious, then go ahead. To be honest, I really want to kill this scumbag. Lin Feng frowned. At the same time, he suddenly waved his hand and signaled his colleagues to stop the camera temporarily. Since he entered Zhao Li's house and saw Zhang Xiaoqin, the camera had been on. Seeing Lin Feng's action, Zhao Lu opened his mouth slightly, but didn't say anything. Zhao Lu, regarding the clues you provided, I will sort them out when I get back and send them to you for you to take a look at. Lin Feng said seriously, I also hope that you can understand that a confession is a very serious thing, and not just words spoken in a moment of anger. I can pretend that I didn't hear what you just said, but I also hope that you won't say the same thing next time. Zhao Lu said, I cooperate with you not because I think I need to help Wang Liang find the murderer, but because I hope you won't continue to disturb my sister. My house is fine. I hope you won't come again. If there's nothing else, I'll go home to see my sister. Saying this, Zhao Lu stood up and prepared to leave. He suddenly turned his head, looked at Lin Feng, and then looked at the camera that was turned off. After hurriedly saying a word of thanks, he quickly left. Officer Lin, do you believe Zhao Li's words? His colleague suddenly asked. Lin Feng didn't answer directly, but said, Zhang Xiaoqin committed suicide before Wang Liang's disappearance. She was hospitalized and couldn't walk, so basically we can eliminate the suspicion. Next, let's act separately. You go to find this woman called Wu Rong. I'll go to the hospital. His colleague frowned. Officer Lin, do you suspect Zhao Li? We can't let go of any possibility because of sympathy and subjectivity. Lin Feng shook his head. Sympathy doesn't equal to understanding. Zhao Li has enough motive to kill, and according to the current situation, he's probably the biggest suspect. His colleague pondered for a moment. If so, this kid's psychological quality is too terrifying. Since we saw him, he was full of anger and excitement, but not fear and panic. Don't underestimate the kids nowadays. Lin Feng shook his head, saying casually, many times the things kids do can make adults feel cold on the back. Go, a suspect is dead in the bureau. We don't have many people left. Anyway, I'll just have to work overtime. At night at the Riverside Park, the children were playing. They were all young, around 7 or 8 years old. As for the adults, they were playing chess at the side. In front of the parterre, Chun Mingming was using a pencil to draw the city on the other side of the river. Wow, big brother, you're so awesome. This was a little boy who came over curiously. The sketch on the notebook was exactly the same as the city on the other side of the river, which made the little boy feel incredible. Chun Mingming stopped, looking at the boy, smiling slightly. The little boy pointed at a figure sitting on a bench in the sketch, a figure from the back. Who is this person? There was only such a figure in the sketch, who seemed to be looking at something in the background. Besides that, there was no other figure in the sketch. Chun Mingming didn't answer, but just closed the notebook. He glanced at the little boy in front of him, suddenly saying, let me show you something. The little boy opened his eyes curiously, looking forward to it. Chun Mingming put his hand into the school bag, then looked at the little boy's eyes, pulling out a silver pistol from the school bag bit by bit. The cool appearance made the little boy think of the weapons of the heroes in some special TV dramas on TV. The texture of the weapons was far better than the plastic toys that cost dozens of yuan. The little boy instantly exclaimed, and his eyes became brighter. Chun Mingming waved his hand at this time, letting the little boy turn around. He put his hands around the little boy's body, then lifted the little boy's hands, slowly holding the silver pistol's handle, and then pointed at an old man who was walking his dog in front. This was probably an unprecedented stimulation for the little boy. The little boy tilted his head, narrowing his right eye, and made an aiming action. Chun Mingming whispered in the little boy's ear, do you want to shoot? The little boy nodded excitedly. Because of the stimulation, his heart even beat faster. Chun Mingming let go of his hand at this time, letting the little boy hold the pistol with both hands and make an aiming posture. The little boy smiled, and his fingers passed through the trigger position at the same time. The weight of the pistol didn't match its metal texture, so he could hold it very steadily. The old man stopped, and the pet dog was squatting at his feet, accompanying him. The old man at this time looked at the beautiful scenery of the city, seemingly immersed in it. The spearhead moved little by little from the old man's body to the old man's neck to the old man's head, and finally stopped. His finger pressed the trigger little by little, and time seemed to slow down. Chun Mingming silently watched the little boy's every move. At this time, a rough voice instantly passed to the two's position, and, at the same time, it stopped the little boy's action. It was a middle-aged man carrying a shopping bag who was watching the chess game. The little boy suddenly stuck out his tongue, turned around, and stuck out his tongue at Chun Mingming, and then reluctantly returned the pistol to Chun Mingming. Big brother, will you come tomorrow? I don't know. Chun Mingming smiled slightly. The little boy didn't ask anything more. His father urged him again and walked towards this side. The little boy had to quickly run back to his father. When he held the little boy's hand, his father glanced at Chun Mingming vigilantly, and then walked away quickly and said quite sternly, Kid, don't take other people's things. Obviously, the father saw the pistol, but he didn't think it was a real gun. The riverside soon returned to tranquility, and the old man who was enjoying the sunset slowly walked away with his pet. Not long after, the people playing chess also cleaned up the chessboard, and the people watching the game gradually dispersed. There were fewer and fewer people. Chun Mingming seemed to have integrated with the light from bright to dark, as if he was one with the surroundings. He walked to a long wooden bench in front of him and sat down. It was the place where the figure in the painting sat. He sat like this, watching the last bit of the sunset disappear into the horizon, leaving only the dark red clouds in the end. He suddenly took out the pistols magazine. There were no bullets. 10 minutes later, the street lights were turned on, and Chun Mingming carried his school bag and left here. It had to be said that the ability of women to talk, especially when one side seemed to have endless topics, that kind of afternoon tea time, could only be easily passed. Oh, why is this damn boy still not here? Naniren finally got this opportunity, so naturally, she wouldn't let it go. After intercepting Yi, Naniren secretly sent a message to her son at the first time. He said that he wanted to go to the library to look for information today. Maybe he was too engrossed and forgot the time. Yi said with a smile. Run Xiling rolled her eyes. Reading books is more fun than having a girlfriend. No, it's not important. Yi Luochio is usually like a piece of wood. But don't worry, such a man is good, loyal. Miss Maid covered her mouth and chuckled. In an instant, it seemed that this noisy place returned to hundreds of years ago, like the courtyard of the noble palace. Nanny Rin looked at it and was somewhat fascinated. Why don't you sit down first? I'll go to buy something. Rin Xiling thought for a while. Anyway, I'm out, so I don't have to prepare dinner. You sit down first. I'll go to the counter to see what's delicious. Luochio will be here soon, so I won't starve him. Miss Maid naturally didn't intend to refuse Ren Xiling's care. Ren Xiling stretched her beautiful body and slowly walked into the shop. At this time, Miss Maid smiled slightly and was about to stand up, because the master appeared. But she didn't stand up, because before this, Luochio had put his hand on her shoulder and whispered, "Just sit down." After that, Luochio pulled up a chair and sat down. Yi began to make do with the flower tea ordered by Ren Xiling, and poured tea for Luochio. When I came out to buy something, I met Miss Run, so I was delayed for a while. It doesn't matter, Luochio smiled and said, she likes you very much and wants to see you more than once. But you've worked hard. She's very long-winded. Yi whispered, Master, I'm talking about your affairs. How can I be long-winded? Luochio suddenly stood up, bent down, and kissed this pair of light lips a light kiss. The eyelashes on her eyes were slightly fluttering, and there was a little trace of blue in her eyes. She naturally climbed on Luochio's neck. Their lips parted. Luochio whispered, These days I want to do something by myself. Don't think too much. Okay. Dong dong. Chapter 1182. Do you pay for the QR code scan? Yes. Ren Xiling took the 2 cups of coffee after scanning the phone. When she turned around, she saw what happened in front of the outdoor seats outside the glass door. The boy stood up and bent over to kiss the girl who sat quietly. Everything was as beautiful as art. Ren Xiling raised the 2 cups of coffee to block her eyes and then secretly peeped out. Nanny Run, who was secretly happy in her heart, also showed her true feelings on her face. She kept snickering. It was probably the sound of giggling. So he is enlightened. Nanny Rin nodded with a satisfied look. Then I won't bother you. She would do it when she thought about it. Nanny Rin gave the drinks she just bought to the clerk and asked her to send them out. Then she quietly left from the side door. After a while, the red mini car slowly drove out. Lizzie, are you at home? You're home. Shall I pick you up? I'm in a good mood today, so I'll treat you to a drink. Manuscript? What manuscript? I don't know. There's no such thing. It's impossible to work overtime. Misrin seems to have left. They seemed to disappear in this tea house in an instant. Luochio and Yi were no longer in people's sight, but they were still sitting here. Luochio smiled slightly and didn't speak. Miss Maid whispered, Master, are you going back to the shop? Luochio shook his head. Not now. Since I'm out, let's do something else. Yi showed a puzzled look. How about watching a movie? Luochio chuckled. It seems that we haven't watched a proper movie. Movie? Luaccio stood up and stretched out his hand to invite. Beautiful lady, can you do me the honor of a date tonight? Miss Maid put her palm on Luaccio's palm without thinking and whispered, of course. She smiled faintly, and her eyes were as bright as the stars. Little by little, dust-like particles suddenly drifted out from the servant girl's body. There wasn't much of it, and it quickly disappeared. Miss Maid looked at the changes in her body in surprise, but she soon understood what was going on. She frowned slightly and was even surprised. When Luaccio said softly, "Don't be so angry next time. You should know best. I won't get hurt. I'm sorry for making you worry, master." The servant girl looked a little upset. "Yui, it seems that you're not perfect enough." Luaccio held her hand and walked towards the long street. When he sold you out, a trace of sadness was naturally rooted in your soul. When your predecessor was still around, your thoughts weren't free. This seed of sorrow has always been there, suppressed. The path I walk is different from my predecessors. Yui looked at Luaccio's cheek and was slightly moved. "I like you staying by my side, but it shouldn't be just because I'm your master." Luaccio said seriously, "No matter how deeply you hide this trace of sadness and anger, I will pull it out and make it disappear." "Master." Miss Maid's eyes flickered again. It was just that time had stopped. She suddenly stopped moving. This world, this space-time, everything had naturally come to a standstill. Luaccio sighed and reached out to touch Miss Maid's face. He said indifferently, "I don't intend to resign. It's enough. If you overdo it, I'll dislike you. What's the use of depriving me of my emotions so carefully? If you want to keep me, just make me happy." She moved. Miss Maid's time flowed again, but her dark blue eyes were chaotic, as if there were countless stars in everything. "You remember?" This was Yuye's voice, but it wasn't her. At the altar, Luaccio could easily feel that another was trying to communicate with him through Yuye's body, a face-to-face conversation that was different from the past. "You're finally willing to see me." Luaccio smiled slightly and seemed to be quite satisfied with the result this time. "If I didn't appear, you would have." "Forget it, I'll satisfy you." Yuyi glared at him fiercely and then said discouragingly, "How much do you remember?" "Not much, just some very fragmented things, and I can't piece them together," Luaccio said indifferently. "And some feelings." "Sure enough." Yuyi lowered her head slightly, and soon, Loya's attack on you last time still had an effect. The royal power penetrated into your body and finally resonated with your power. "Isn't this what you want to see more?" Luaccio said suddenly. "I can vaguely feel it." Yuyi shook her head, kept silent for a moment, and then said slowly, "There is still a loophole in the agent of the origin, and the royal power is the last resort. But if the heir of the royal power becomes the agent at the same time, this loophole will be blocked, and the agent will be perfect." "So I was born, right?" "No, you're just an accident." Yuyi shook her head. "I can't tell you too much about the details." Luaccio narrowed his eyes. "Represent the altar or the origin?" Yuyi also looked at Luaccio and said seriously, "I'm the altar and also the origin, but the origin is not me. Remember, the origin needs a perfect agent, and I will help you." "Why?" Luaccio frowned. Yuyi walked to Luaccio's side, and her head gently rested on Luaccio's chest. At this moment, even as the boss, his time had stopped. "Because no matter what you want to do, I'll make it happen for you." Yuyi hugged for a while before slowly raising her head. Suddenly, she stood on her tiptoes and lightly pecked Luaccio on the lips before slowly retreating. Yuyi stared at him for a while before opening her arms slightly, and a cold presence slowly spread out from her body. Surface consciousness connection disconnected. Agent's growth rate has exceeded limit. Activating backup mechanism. Sealing all royal memories of the agent. Adjusting growth rate. Agent's servant. St. John's status has been upgraded to partner candidate. The surface consciousness has been reconnected. The fluctuation rate of the deep consciousness seal is 1.3%. Repairing. Repair complete. 62,400,090 true souls consumed this time. Surface consciousness embedding. Embedding successful. Deep consciousness hibernating. Surface consciousness hibernating. Activating self-running program. You looked at Luaccio and slowly closed her eyes. The next time we meet, I'll definitely swallow it. So, this time, you can't be faster than me, okay? By then, I'll really let you. Luaccio looked around instinctively. Master? Miss Maid's eyes were shining. Luaccio could not help but apologize. I seem to have spoiled the mood. Sorry, I shouldn't have been distracted. Miss Maid smiled and shook her head. Something seems different. Luaccio looked at Yu Yi and suddenly said. Miss Maid's mouth moved in confusion. Maybe it's because of Master's help. Yu Ye's mood has become more relaxed. Luaccio nodded. This was the maid who would make him a pot of black tea in the afternoon and accompany him silently, making him feel extremely comfortable and comfortable. Come, the movie should be starting soon. Luaccio smiled and said, I think you don't want to miss this movie. Just like the roar of the Declaration. At this time, the true dragon of China was lying on the sofa in her pajamas. She supported her head with her hands, and while eating sunflower seeds, she watched a boring TV series and complained. What the hell? Chi into a horse. TSK, TSK. Different from Kelowna Shinryu, who had no manners, the little butterfly monster of the pet hospital was sitting aside like a well-behaved baby. She wasn't affected at all and was doing the test paper called third-year college entrance examination. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Kelowna Shinryu, who just wanted to stay at home for a few days, frowned. Dance, send them away. Okay. Luo Dance nodded and walked out quickly. Soon, the little butterfly monster trotted back. Kelowna Shinryu rolled his eyes when he saw the butterfly monster trotting back with her chest swaying. But the little butterfly monster said, Sister Long, 2 men in black suits came and said they wanted to give you this. What Luo Dance took out was a small red book with a stamp on it. From the administration? Long Shirua frowned. Although she didn't want to, she still sat up. Don't these guys have anything better to do? What else did they say? Luo Dance said, They said they came here to deal with a case. Sorry to disturb you. So they came to say hello. Deal with a case? Long Shirua pondered for a while. Generally speaking, this city was her private land. Though the administration existed, it was just an empty shell. There were only a few clerks who helped her to fulfill some of her requirements. For example, they helped some monsters to settle down, set up resident status, or arrange for little monsters to go to school and work. Kelowna Shinryu, who appeared in front of the 2 agents of the administration, was certainly not wearing pajamas. Although Kelowna Shinryu had a lot of clothes, most of them were bought by an old tortoise with a special hobby when he was a child. Long Shirua's original clothes were basically shirts, jeans, and a white coat. I'm Lu Mingho, an intermediate agent. Nice to meet you, Consultant Long. I'm Wei Zidao, a junior agent. Nice to meet you, Consultant Long. Do you have nothing better to do? Long Shirua looked at the 2 agents who didn't even dare to raise their heads. Agent Lu Mingho then explained the purpose of his visit. Consultant, we received a special case application here, so we came to investigate. These are the application materials written by the local police chief himself, and these are the documents approved by the higher-ups. Please take a look. Long Shirua grabbed it and opened it. Died in the detention center? This attracted Long Shirua's attention, so she continued to read it. After a while, she put down. Lu Mingho saw the opportunity and said, Consultant Long, we have checked the video of the incident. There was no post-processing. The criminal was shot out of thin air, and there were no bullets left in his body. It's impossible to do it by normal means. Okay. Long Shirua nodded, but she didn't pay too much attention to it. These things were extremely strange in the eyes of ordinary people, but when it came to transcendence, they could come up with dozens or hundreds of possibilities. What the surveillance video couldn't capture could be the effect of some kind of Dao technique, or some demons themselves had the ability to hide. Longshaw was really not interested in these kinds of things. But there was one thing that surprised her. She looked at the 2 intermediate agents and frowned. I remember that you didn't make it public. Why did the police chief of this city write this application? Lu Mingho quickly said, It's like this, Consultant. Since the Mount Tai incident, the Superior passed a special case, and the encrypted documents were basically passed to the first and second leaders of the major cities or above, as well as the police chief. Special case? When did this happen? Long Shuo opened her mouth. Why didn't I know? Lu Mingho said nervously. This was decided by the Superior. I don't know. Consultant. Maybe you can ask. Long Shuo pondered for a moment, then waved her hand. Okay, go do what you need to do, and write a report for me later. The two quickly excused themselves. After that, Long Shuo picked up the phone, and a call was made to the distant capital. The person who answered the phone was Fire Cloud, Evil God, who had just returned to the capital and hadn't had time to cultivate. Lord Long? Calling at this time, what's the matter? Fire Cloud, Evil God. Let me ask you, what's going on with the special case? Long Shuo said with slight anger. Are you going to bypass me for something? Lord Long, you must be joking. The special case is to better deal with the impact of the revival of Spirit Chi. Fire Cloud, Evil God, said slowly. Originally, I had planned to wait a few more days to gather more information and come to a conclusion before discussing it with you. However, since you've asked, I'll tell you something. What is it? On the second day of the press conference, we received a total of 3 special cases. Fire Cloud, Evil God, said seriously. 3 newborn babies appeared in 3 hospitals. These 3 babies each have unusual weak abilities. These 3 hospitals were not far away from the time when the disaster broke out. Moreover, we received 2 more reports of similar cases today. What do you mean? Long Shuo frowned subconsciously. Fire Cloud, Evil God, said solemnly. Perhaps an era of superpowers is about to appear. This is troublesome. Long Shuo muttered to herself. Chapter 1183. In a living room, the little butterfly monster was practicing her ventriloquism. Suddenly, she was startled by Long Shuo, who rushed out of the living room. It was supposed to be family, but because she was startled, the question mark him? For some reason, the pronunciation of Li became the. Okay, I'm going to the capital. I don't know when I'll come back. You take care of this place. If Mo Xiaofei comes to find me, ask him to call me directly. Without further explanation or waiting for Luo Dance's reaction, Kelowna Shinryu rushed out again. Sister Long, didn't you say you wanted to eat turkey cheese noodles? I've already prepared it. Long Shuo was no longer in the pet hospital. After thinking for a while, she felt that it would be a waste if she didn't eat these noodles. Since she didn't like to eat them, the little butterfly monster put on her white canvas shoes and took some food, planning to feed the cat. After coming back for a few days, there were 2 more stray cats in the open space. I don't know if I'll meet the boss. The last time she fed the cats with the boss was a long time ago. After leaving the pet hospital, Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao went to the city's bureau chief Lu as fast as possible, who was Sir Ma's brother-in-law. Director Lu had written the application materials overnight, but he didn't expect that he would send someone over so soon. Only 3 people in the city knew about the encrypted red header document, and they only knew about it at the municipal level. People below the county level didn't know about it. When he saw the documents in Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao's hands, Bureau Chief Lu was really shocked. But he didn't ask much, but cooperated with the two's action, taking Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao to the detention center that night. Because there was a problem here. The suspects who were originally detained here and had not yet been convicted or interrogated were all arranged to be held in another place, leaving only the police officers on guard. Lu Mingho asked Bureau Chief Lu to get the police officers out of the detention room. Then, he started to check the crime scene with Wei Zidao. At this time, Wei Zidao put the suitcase he brought along on the ground, opened it, and took out a variety of conventional equipment of the agency. Lu Mingho, on the other hand, began to check around the cell with a device called the alien energy detector. However, the two of them did not find anything even after half an hour of searching. That's weird. The time of the crime should be around 11 a.m. yesterday. It's been less than 36 hours since then. Lu Mingho couldn't help but frown. According to past data, the weakest residual time of any demonic power or mana fluctuation is over 48 hours. There are no signs of destruction in the surroundings. Wei Zidao also began to analyze. Since the camera can't capture anything, it's more likely to be a spirit or a ghost. I've checked, and there's no trace of Yin energy. Looks like we can't see anything here. Lu Mingho nodded. How about this? Let's go take a look at the corpse. Maybe we can find something. Wei Zidao nodded and quickly packed up the tools. After that, Lu Mingho found Bureau Chief Lu and asked to check the corpse. Bureau Chief Lu naturally agreed and directly let Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao get on his private car, driving directly to the place where the corpse was placed. Bureau Chief Lu personally led them all the way, so there was no interrogation. Of course, this was also Lu Mingho's request. The most important rule of the agency was to avoid leakage as much as possible to avoid unnecessary influence. By the way, Bureau Chief Lu, about the deceased, how are you going to deal with it? Lu Mingho asked casually. Bureau Chief Lu wiped his forehead with a handkerchief and said seriously, "We can announce that the prisoner was killed, but the prisoner has confessed to his crime. I think we can use his suicide as a reason. Of course, I'll keep all the related personnel confidential." That's good. The reason is sufficient. Lu Mingho didn't say anything directly, but simply nodded. Basically, if the local people couldn't solve it, the agency would have to deal with it themselves. Lu Mingbo didn't trust Bureau Chief Lu's words about keeping a secret. There were too many people around, and there were bound to be some people who accidentally leaked something. But the agency had a mature process for dealing with this part. Among the many Taoist weapons developed by the agency, there were good and cheap props. Otherwise, the society wouldn't have been so peaceful for so many years. After all, there were many mysterious incidents every year. But on the way, there was one thing that made Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao secretly shocked. That was the heterogeneous energy detector. It could be said that it had been crazily outputting it, almost to the extent that it could detect the existence of demon power at every step. Sure enough, it was the private land of the Shinryu in Kelowna. There were too many demons hiding in this place. Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao sighed at the same time. There were only the two of them here, and it could be said that they were alone. A kind of difficult and dangerous feeling suddenly attacked their hearts. Soon, the two people from the agency, accompanied by Director Lu, came to the place where the corpse was placed. Before the two of them arrived, the corpse was sent to the autopsy place. "Director, why are you here?" In the work area, Director Lu only saw a young man with messy hair, Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao looked at the two people brought by the director and opened his mouth to say something, but was stopped by the director's eyes. After that, Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao directly walked inside. Xiao Bao subconsciously wanted to stop them, but was stopped by Director Lu. "Xiao Bao, they're here to deal with this matter. No matter what they do, just pretend you don't see or know. Come and talk with me for a while." "Oh, okay." Xiao Bao nodded. The two walked to the outside corridor, and Xiao Bao couldn't help yawning in front of Director Lu because he was too sleepy. Director Lu patted Xiao Bao's shoulder. "You've worked hard during the time when Old Qin was not here. But don't worry, I've already applied for it. In fact, a new forensic doctor will come tomorrow to temporarily replace Old Qin's work. It happens that there's a dismembered corpse case here, which is a big and urgent case. You have to assist the new forensic doctor well, understand?" Xiao Bao was stunned and frowned. "Director, what happened to Section Chief Qin? It's reasonable to ask for leave for such a long time, right? I called him, but I couldn't find him." Director Lu said, "Let alone you. Even I don't know about this matter. Old Qin didn't do things like this before. It's been half a year, and he seems to have disappeared. In fact, I've already asked someone to look for him, but there's no news yet. Could it be that the section chief met with an accident?" Director Lu shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. "Well, don't wait here. If there's nothing else, you can go back and have a good rest." Xiao Bao nodded, packed his things, and ran back to the office. Director Li said that a new forensic doctor would come tomorrow. How could Xiao Bao dare to be careless? Speaking of which, Xiao Bao had been alone in the office these days when Section Chief Qin was not here. He was very free. If he had nothing to do at work, he would crazily slack off. The air conditioner the internet expenses, and the canteen could handle 3 meals a day. It was simply wonderful. Well, this position needs to be adjusted. I can't let the new forensic doctor keep an eye on me. Xiao Bao pondered about the layout of the office. He should put the two offices together so that two people could sit opposite each other when working. Hey, the new expansion pack is finally released. I've been waiting for so long. Previously, the game said that it was going to release a new version, but it had been suspended for several days. Only this game could do such a sky-high operation like shutting down the server for a few days because of an update, right? I haven't done an instance dungeon for a few days. I kind of miss Brother Xiao and Sister Ruru. Without saying anything, Xiao Bao began to click on the option to download the update. Let them deal with the outside matters blindly. It was better to look at the content of the update first. Oh, hero achievement? Dark Age? Demonic land? An evil demon named Tai Yin invaded from another dimension, and the land has been demonized. Is this version the rhythm of a crusade against the Demon King? In the room, Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao were carefully examining the body of the deceased. They naturally did not have the expertise of forensic doctors, but they had a set of mature examination methods. The wound hasn't changed since it was formed. It's a one-time wound. There are no remnants of bullets. Perhaps it was some kind of method disguised as a bullet attack. But we still haven't found any remnants of foreign energy. Strange. Lu Mingho couldn't help but frown at this time. But just when the two were puzzled, the foreign energy detector suddenly reacted. But this reaction didn't come from the corpse, but from the refrigerator next to it. After being curious for a while, the two opened the refrigerator and found a container from the innermost part of the refrigerator. At this time, the detector's data began to rise a little. They saw that in the container there was a small, nail-sized sarcoma, slowly shrinking, very slowly, about 1 minute or so. It moved slightly. But this kind of active reaction, as the container left the refrigerator and the temperature rose, seemed to gradually become stronger. When the temperature returned to normal, this sarcoma had a small area of squirming. What's this? Lu Mingho directly frowned, then looked at Wei Zidao and said, "Go and ask." 98%. 99%. Seeing that the update was about to be completed, Xiao Bao blinked, and his hands were already on the keyboard, ready to enter his account and password at any time. Xiao Bao, come out for a moment." It was the voice of Bureau Chief Lu. Bureau Chief Lu was standing outside the door at this time. Just a little bit more. Xiao Bao secretly wailed, then put on a smiling face and hurriedly ran out. "Bureau Chief, I'm here. What's the matter?" At this time, the computer screen suddenly flashed, and the game directly jumped into the login interface after the update. At this time, another small interface popped out, covering the login interface of the game. It was a very small window. Do you want to feel the meaning of life? The small interface didn't exist for a long time. After about a minute, it slowly disappeared, leaving only the login interface of the game. Xiao Bao looked at the two men in black suits in front of him nervously. Before coming in, Bureau Chief Lu had told him that no matter what questions they asked him, he must answer truthfully without any concealment. But Bureau Chief Lu didn't come in himself, but waited in the corridor outside. These two men in black suits, are they very important? At this time, Xiao Bao couldn't help but be curious about the background of these two men. Lu Mingho directly put the container on the table. This thing was found in the refrigerator inside. "Let me ask you, do you know the origin of this thing?" Xiao Bao was stunned, looking at the container, and was very scared, mainly because of the sarcoma inside, which gave him a creepy feeling. "This thing was in my workplace?" Xiao Bao swallowed his saliva and turned the container with a pair of tweezers, turning one side of the label, and looking at it. There was a word "Qin" on it. "What do you know?" Wei Zidao asked directly. Xiao Bao thought for a while. "I remember. This is the sample of the culture done by Section Chief Qin." Yes, I remember." "Tell me in detail. Don't leave any details," Lu Mingho said in a low voice. Xiao Bao subconsciously shrank his neck and recalled, this thing should be left at the scene of a murder that happened around National Day last year. At that time, we found some strange liquid at the scene and some fine tissue remains. I remember that Section Chief wanted to use it to culture to see what it was. But what? Lu Mingming hurriedly asked. Xiao Bao shook his head, but it's a little strange. The last murderer of that case appeared but escaped. The arrest warrant is still here, and our section chief asked for leave after that, and hasn't come back yet. I didn't dare to touch this thing, so I simply put it in the innermost part of the refrigerator. If you didn't find it today, I would have forgotten about it. Xiao Bao frowned again, but I remember that when I put it in, it was only the size of an ant. I didn't see it move. Low temperature growth? Isn't this vitality too strong? What's so big about it? What the hell is this thing? Seeing Xiao Bao was lost in thought, Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao looked at each other for a day, and Wei Zidao said indifferently, "Can you show us the details of the case? I can only find all the inspection materials at the scene of the crime at most." Xiao Bao shook his head. "I don't have the other process of the case. Maybe you can ask the director for it. There's nothing for you to do. You can go back." Wei Zidao suddenly picked up the container and put it in the suitcase he brought. "Wait, what are you doing?" Xiao Bao was a little surprised. This thing can't be taken away casually. Lu Mingho didn't speak and directly took out a small bottle from his pocket, unscrewed it, and took out a blue and white capsule. Then, under Xiao Bao's surprised gaze, he directly reached out and clasped Xiao Bao's chin and put the capsule into Xiao Bao's mouth. "What'd you give me?" "Fragment." Xiao Bao suddenly felt a burst of dizziness, and then slowly fell down, but Wei Zidao quickly caught Xiao Bao and helped him to sit aside. This was one of the props that the administration used to deal with related personnel. As long as it was a capsule, it could basically make ordinary people forget what happened in a few hours. Chapter 1184. Don't care about the detention center? Why? At dawn, Sir Ma and Zhou Yuxing came to Director Lu's office and heard their boss's words. Ma Hao suddenly became agitated. He pressed his hands on the desk, which made Director Lu's heart jump. He quickly wiped his sweat with a handkerchief and said, "Because this matter has been handed over to someone else to investigate. And you and Zhou Yuxing should focus on the dismembered corpse case, which is what the public knows and concerns us." Ma Hao frowned. Someone could ignore all the guards and commit murder in that place, which was a hidden danger. Of course, it didn't mean that the case outside was not important. "We understand, Director Lu. We'll solve the dismembered corpse case as soon as possible." Zhou Yuxing saw that Ma Hao still wanted to say something, so he hurriedly said and pulled Ma Hao out of Director Lu's office. Sir Ma was unhappy. "Zhou Yuxing, what do you mean?" Someone from the top intervened. "Director Lu asked us to come here at dawn, which means there's no room for negotiation." Zhou Yuxing frowned. "We don't need to be stubborn with Director Lu here. We all know Director Lu's character. Didn't he take responsibility for your accident last time? Since he doesn't want us to investigate this time, I'm afraid he can't take responsibility anymore." Sir Ma didn't say anything, but smoked one cigarette after another. After smoking several cigarettes, he reluctantly returned to the special case team with Zhou Yuxing. While the detention center was at a loss, several suspects had been identified in the dismembered corpse case. One was Wu Rong, who caused Wang Liang to flirt with several women, and the other was Zhao Le. Both of them had a big motive. One might hate because of love, and the other might want to avenge his sister. After investigation, it was found that Wu Rong often went in and out of Wang Liang's rented place when she was dating him. Therefore, it was highly possible that she had the key to Wang Liang's house and sneaked in to commit the crime. Moreover, Wu Rong didn't work in the city after the new year and went to Xiangcheng, which was worth investigating. After further investigation, it was found that Wu Rong bought a train ticket back to her hometown before the new year. We tried to contact Wu Rong's relatives in her hometown, but Wu Rong didn't go back. Lin Feng sorted out the information from the investigation, but according to the records, Wu Rong had already boarded the train. Ma Hao nodded. Then, he discussed with Zhou Yuxing for a while and said, "How about this? Take someone with you and go to Wu Rong's hometown. Try your best to find her. I'll contact the local police station and ask them to cooperate. There's no time to lose. Go now." Lin Feng stood at attention, saluted, and said loudly, "Yes." Gawain walked into the classroom with a heavy heart. He had arrived early that day and had even opened the door himself, not to see every student enter the classroom, just to see every student entering. With the arrival of class, students came in one by one, greeted him, and sat down. Gawain didn't see what he wanted to see. He subconsciously looked at the time. Minute by minute, second by second, the bell for class finally rang. Gawain sat on the podium, silently looking at the students in the class. He did something he didn't usually do. Roll call. Gawain's classes were usually open with several classes of students, and they were usually full. Roll call was a waste of time, but he still did it today. The students were naturally very curious about Lecturer Gawain's abnormality today. It seemed that the senior lecturer was a little different these days. Chun Zaheo, Wei Xinyue, Shi Ji Min, Luochio. He casually called out the name Luochio, but there was no response for a long time. Gawain carefully looked around. Some students also began to look around. They were unfamiliar with this name and guessed that it might be a student from another class. Luochio, are you here? Are you here? Gawain confirmed again and looked at the last seat by the window. Finally, Gawain closed the name list and said indifferently, "Okay, that's all for roll call. Let's start the class now." Fortunately, the roll call was only a few minutes, so it was still acceptable. The students quickly opened the textbooks in their hands. After Gawain sorted out his thoughts, he secretly shook his head, then turned around and began to write on the blackboard. His handwriting was beautiful, even if he used chalk. After he finished writing, Gawain slowly turned around, holding the microphone. "Okay, today we'll talk about..." His eyes suddenly widened, his breathing seemed to stop at this moment, and his heartbeat inexplicably thumped. "He's in that seat. When did he come? Did he quietly enter from the back door when I was writing?" Gawain took a deep breath, but his words suddenly paused because all the students' eyes were focused on him. He had no choice but to pick up where he left off and continue his lesson as if nothing had happened. However, his gaze never left that young man's body. Halfway through the class, Gawain suddenly gave the students a topic to discuss and asked them to discuss in groups. This was a very common teaching pattern. The students began to discuss on their own. Because Lecturer Gawain's class was usually very relaxed, the students quickly gathered in twos and threes to discuss. Gawain casually walked around the lecture hall, as if he was listening to the students' discussion, but he only had one goal, and that was to get closer to the last seat. It was always there. It didn't suddenly disappear. Step by step, Gawain's heartbeat echoed. Finally, Gawain reached his destination, the last step, and sat down. There was only Luochio next to him. Only he and Luochio sat in this row of 4 desks. There was a row in front of them where the other students sat. Gawain seriously looked at the young man who had been bothering him for a few days, since he suddenly appeared that day. "You? Why didn't you discuss with the other students?" "Because I don't know them. I was taking attendance just now. Why didn't you respond?" "Did you take attendance?" "Maybe I came a little late. I'm sorry. When I arrived, I only saw you reading. You said you don't know them? Why?" "Teacher, shouldn't you know that I'm not a student here?" As he asked and answered, Gawain became calmer and calmer. But his heart was not calm. This was not the mental state a student of his age should have. Almost instantly, Gawain thought of one of his own students, Chun Mingming. But Chun Mingming's figure only flashed in his mind, because Luochio's existence was so powerful. He seemed to be the person who was most familiar with you, the person who was closest to you, and the person who understood you the most. But this should not be the case. The most familiar stranger. This feeling surged in Gawain's heart in an instant. He opened his mouth slightly, intending to ask something. "Teacher Gawain, your question is actually quite interesting." Luochio suddenly smiled. This made Gawain swallow the words he wanted to say. He subconsciously said, "Oh." The topic for the students' discussion was forgiveness. Content. In the court of Country M, a serial killer was being charged. The killer's methods were extremely cruel. The victims were all women. Before they were killed, they were all violated by the killer, and in the end, they were brutally killed. The women's family members gathered in the court. Everyone offered the most vicious curses for the killer's heinous crimes. Faced with the curses of the victims' families, the killer was calm and expressionless. Only the pastor father of one of the victims said after the statement, "As a father, I can't forgive your crimes. But as a pastor, I can only represent myself and forgive you." The accused criminal burst into tears on the spot and broke down emotionally. What do you think is interesting? Gawain naturally did not forget his question. But before that, tell me whether you think the killer should be forgiven. I can only represent myself and forgive him, Luaccio said slowly. Gawain frowned. That's your answer? Luaccio shook his head slightly. That's the pastor's answer. Gawain was silent for a moment. Then he asked again, I'm asking you. Luaccio said indifferently, don't the courts already have the concepts of forgiveness and non-forgiveness at the same time? And the pastors have the concepts of forgiveness and non-forgiveness at the same time. I'm not them. You're not going to answer? Gawain frowned again. Luaccio looked at Gawain. When their eyes met, Gawain subconsciously adjusted his glasses. He heard Luaccio's words just now. If I'm not this pastor, and I'm not the victim's family member, on what basis can I not forgive this murderer? And on what basis can I forgive this murderer? We can assume that we're them. This is just for research purposes, Gawain emphasized. Luaccio smiled and said, I just need to take a look. To me, it doesn't matter how many people I forgive or how many people I don't forgive. Gawain opened his mouth as if he was thinking. He adjusted his glasses again and seemed to have fallen into some sort of trance. I've already said that this is a hypothesis. It's an academic study. You shouldn't avoid it. You might avoid it because you don't want to face such a choice. Indeed, Luaccio nodded at this moment. As long as there are emotions, no one would be willing to face such a choice. So, the best way is to not let such a choice happen to you. Gawain frowned and said, but in reality, we can't control the changes in nature, let alone prevent accidents from happening. So, you shouldn't avoid it. What you need to do is face it head on. No. Luaccio looked at Gawain and said indifferently, I can do it now. In an instant, Gawain seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world, as well as a lie. He opened his mouth slightly. At this moment, the only thing that could be seen in Luaccio's eyes was an incredible confidence. This choice won't happen to me, Luaccio said indifferently. So, I can only be a bystander. At the same time, I've lost the right to discuss this case. Only this case? Gawain vaguely seemed to think of something, but he didn't really grasp it. He was silent for a long time and returned to the original question. Then, why do you think this question is interesting? Isn't it interesting to have a case where contradictions exist at the same time? Luaccio smiled and said, as I said, in the same court, there's both forgiveness and non-forgiveness. The family didn't forgive the murderer, but after being sentenced by the law, they forgave him. The priest didn't forgive him as the father, but forgave him as a priest. If possible, I hope I can appear in this court as a spectator. Human nature has always been complicated, Gawain said faintly. He subconsciously ignored Luoccio's last wish to appear in court. He lowered his head, as if thinking of something. After a long time, Gawain took a deep breath and looked up. He couldn't see Luaccio anymore. There was no trace of him on the table next to him. Logically speaking, at such a close distance, he should have noticed. Gawain couldn't help but open his mouth in surprise. Teacher Gawain, are you okay? The students' voices gradually brought him back to reality. He found that many students were looking at him in confusion. Gawain subconsciously asked, what's wrong? A female student stammered, Teacher, you were talking to yourself just now. Gawain was startled. He stood up abruptly and stared at the place beside him, where the young man had been sitting. I was talking to myself? Gawain subconsciously looked at the students in front of him. Their gazes were either astonished or frightened. This gave Gawain a strange feeling of horror. Perhaps everything was just a figment of his imagination. Instantly, Gawain broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't say anything and hurriedly walked out of the classroom. Under the puzzled gazes of the students, he didn't even take his handbag with him. Hey, stop. Someone's coming. Let's go. It seems to be Teacher Gawain. On the corridor leading to the rooftop of the teaching building, a student hurriedly ran over. What's this guy doing here? At this moment, 3 male students were surrounding a bespectacled student, Zhao Lu. Zhao Lu clutched his stomach in pain. His lips were still stained with the bitter saliva he spat out. It was obvious that he had been beaten up, but at the same time, the person who beat him did not choose to hit his face. Instead, he chose to hit somewhere that was not visible. You're lucky. Four-eyed chicken. Polish your glasses better in the future. This was the male student who had been seen in the sports equipment room. After a few jeers, the students left with cheerful smiles. Zhao Lu painfully clutched his stomach and stood up little by little with the help of the wall. Chapter 1185. In the washroom of the teaching building, Zhao Lu stood alone in front of the mirror. His hair was wet and stuck to his face. At the same time, his lips were a little pale. This was the result of resisting the pain. He took a deep breath. His hands trembled at the same time as he slowly opened the hole in his shirt. The bruises on his chest and abdomen could be seen through the open clothes. Zhao Li's fingers scratched these bruises. Every time he touched them, he felt a burning pain. Dong! All of a sudden, Zhao Lu slammed his fist on the sink. Dong! Once again, he slowly pounded his fist on the sink, on the same spot. Dong, 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 dong. He punched again and again, and at the same time, he raised his head and stared at himself in the mirror without blinking. At this time, he was silent, completely silent. This kind of punching lasted for several minutes before stopping. Zhao Li's knuckles were red, and his skin had been scratched. He took a deep breath and slowly buttoned his shirt. Then, his expression returned to normal, and he left this place. The next moment, one of the washroom's doors slowly opened, and it was Chun Mingming. Chun Mingming leaned on the door panel, looking at the position where Zhao Lu stood, seemingly thinking about something. He didn't mean to stay here, but simply wanted to find a quiet place to curiously study the characteristics of the strange pistol in his hand. After 3 experiments, Chun Mingming made a preliminary understanding of the gun's ability. First of all, the bullets it fired could ignore space and distance. However, it was still unclear how far the distance was. Perhaps he could find someone on the other side of the ocean to test it out. However, the suspect in the detention center had already proven that it could ignore space. After the suspect died, Chun Mingming naturally received information about the suspect's death through the silver pistol. Second, the difficulty. The easier the target was, the less difficult it would be, and the less life it would take to make the bullet, and vice versa. At the same time, once the bullet was made, as the person who paid with his life, he would have a feeling that something was taken away. Third, the condition to make the bullet. In addition to using life to make the bullet, it seemed that something else was needed. This wasn't from the person who sold him the pistol, but a vague feeling. Chun Mingming tried to enter that place again, but he didn't succeed. He felt that he might need to meet some conditions to be able to touch that magical place again. Let's do another experiment, Chun Mingming said to himself. After leaving the washroom, Chun Mingming saw Gawain standing alone in the corridor, leaning against the railing and looking into the distance. Gawain seemed to be thinking about something, and he was deep in thought. Chun Mingming's palm gradually lit up, and the pistol appeared again. A translucent bullet began to form in his other palm. He didn't choose to inject life, but he already knew the amount needed. But soon, Chun Mingming removed the pistol and the bullet. The consumption rate is the same as last time. Chun Mingming muttered to himself. The consumption rate is the same as last time. He chose to leave from another path and did not walk past Gawain. Not long after Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao left, they went to the local office of the administration. They were greeted by the few logistics clerks here, and then they settled down in the office's dormitory. Because there were no official agents stationed here, the facilities here were relatively simple, but it was suitable for people to live in. The two of them began to discuss the matter of this mission. Brother Hao, what do you think we should do about this mission? Wei Zidao lay on the bed, using his hands as a pillow. We've been to the crime scene and checked the body, but we couldn't find any clues. This method of crime is beyond the detection range of our tools. Could it be some high-level monster or a cultivator with profound Taoist magic? Lu Mingho didn't say anything. He just took out the container that contained the strange sarcoma. He stuck a yellow talisman on the container. The yellow talisman constantly emitted cold air, simulating a low-temperature environment for the container. Lu Mingho was now observing the sarcoma's activity. Wei Zidao didn't look at it, but continued to murmur, "But since we couldn't find any traces of the crime scene, maybe it's some kind of curse?" And the victim died simply, without any loss of blood essence, life, or soul. Can we rule out the possibility that this is a hunting crime? And it's a vendetta? Alas, Brother Hao, can you say something? Lu Mingho said slowly. Usually, in this case, according to the previous practice, it's temporarily treated as an unsolved case. Unsolved case? What do you mean? Wei Zidao opened his mouth and sat up curiously. He was also a newcomer. He only had a limited number of missions. But after the Mount Tai incident, the staff of the administration became nervous, so he got the chance to go out on missions. Lu Mingho said indifferently, "In addition to the problem of Taoist monsters, there are also some cultivators who walk in the secular world. Most of them walk in order to gain experience in the secular world. Among these people, there were also some who had the intention of upholding justice and slaying demons and devils. The more famous ones are the Celestial Master Taoism of Longhu Mountain, Maoshan's sect, and so on. Then, they can't see some injustices in the world. Most of the time, they follow the ancient practice to eliminate all evils. If they encounter evil monsters, they just kill them so we can relax. But if it's a human, it's a different situation." Wei Zidao understood. "Brother Hao, you mean this victim may have been killed by a righteous man who walks in the Jianghu?" He made a gesture of cutting his neck. Lu Mingho said, "This guy committed rape and murder before. What do you think?" Wei Zidao frowned. "But this guy has confessed, so he may escape the death penalty, right? If so, there's no need to kill him, right?" Lu Mingho shook his head. "You don't understand the thoughts of those people. Many of them think that such a person doesn't deserve to live for one more day. Because according to the normal procedure, there is still a long period of time before the deceased is brought to trial and finally executed. Moreover, if his family continues to deal with the outside, they may be able to avoid the death penalty and change the sentence to life imprisonment." So, Wei Zidao sighed. Lu Mingho waved his hand and said, "Many of these cultivators who walk in the Jianghu act according to their own preferences, and they also have a set of standards for their own judgment. Moreover, they kill evil people. Most of the time, we can only turn a blind eye. You can't argue with them because of a person who deserves to die, right? Besides, I also want to kill such scum. But we are also public servants. There are some things that we can't really do. If we do it, we will be stepping on the line." "Then, are you sure it's those chivalrous men who did it?" Lu Mingho shook his head. "It's hard for me to say, but this is Consultant Long's private land. Many similar things have happened in the past. For example, 2 years ago, there was a great demon named Sun Shaoxing here. He directly peeled off the skin of a drug addict who pushed his old mother down the stairs in order to rob money from his family and hung him up. The result was nothing. We can't really fight with a great demon for such a guy." "Okay," Wei Zidao sighed. This time he looked helpless. "Let's investigate for a few more days. If there is still no result, we will report it truthfully. There will be a special evaluation." Lu Mingho said casually, and then raised a utensil in his hand. "What I am more concerned about now is what is in this thing. This thing looked strange and sinister. Go and apply for some detection equipment. I'll first do a general study of what this thing is." Okay. At night, under the bright lights, alcohol made people release more of their nature. In the back alley of a bar, a man's hands were caught at this time. Then a man with a thick golden chain was punching the man's abdomen. The man spat out blood. He was a little drunk, and his mind was not clear. At this time, he was beaten so hard that he spat out bitter water with blood. "Good for you, Chinair. You have money to pick up girls here, but you don't have money? You have guts, don't you?" No, Brother Shao. Give me a chance, give me a chance. 3 days, just 3 days, I promise to pay you back." Chinair begged. You can beat me to death, but I can't get the money. Wait for me for 3 days. I have money at home. I really have money. My boss has a pension. Trash. The man called Brother Xiao beat him fiercely again. After Qian Er fell to the ground, he spat, "Just 3 days. If you don't pay me back in 3 days, I will break your legs. Go." Brother Xiao left with his companions. Qian Er fell to the ground, covering his stomach. He didn't even have the strength to stand up. He was still drunk, at the same time very painful. F***, a smiling tiger. "One day I will kill you." He suddenly became frightened. He saw someone walking in front of him. He was afraid that Brother Xiao would turn back. The alley was too dark. He fell on the ground and couldn't see clearly who it was. But the man suddenly squatted down with a bottle of liquor in his hand. Qian Er didn't have the strength to resist, but the man poured the liquor directly into his mouth. Qian Er could only drink it painfully. He was full of beer and was beaten up again. At this time, the liquor was poured into his mouth, which made him even more uncomfortable. After a while, Qian Er saw stars and saw double. Who did this to me? I will kill you. Do you want to kill the person who beat you just now?" The man calmly asked slowly. "Who? Kill who?" Qian Er's head shook. He slowly crawled, leaned against the wall, and sat up. "Brother Xiao." It seemed to be a very young voice. Qian Er vomited painfully. His head leaned against the wall, shaking back and forth. "Kill, kill, kill, kill this bastard. Ha ha, pick it up." Qian Er felt as if something was stuffed into his hand. It seemed to be a gun. He burped and slowly raised the thing in his hand. The young voice seemed to have magic, slowly saying in his ear, "If you have no money, he will still deal with you next time. Maybe he will beat you until you are disabled. Then, you may not be able to stand up for the rest of your life. People around you will laugh at you. It will be difficult for you to find a job again. Your family won't care about you. You will be ruined like this." Qian Er's eyes gradually became ferocious. A strong killing intent rushed to his head. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" A bullet, at this moment, slowly formed in front of Qian Er. Bang! The pistol exploded. The bullet was shot out instantly and then disappeared. After that, Qian Er sat down and giggled. 6 days. The young man received such information in his brain, but at the same time, the 6 days were not deducted from his body. The young man quietly looked at Qian Er. At this moment, Qian Er held the pistol and fell down again. Not long after, he fell asleep and didn't know where he was. Miraculously, the silver pistol in Qian Er's arms disappeared little by little and then appeared again in the hand of the young voice. It needs killing intent. The kid didn't have it before. I see. He calmly left the alley. At the front of the street, there was a car accident. A private car suddenly lost control and crashed into the fire hydrant on the street, which attracted a large number of onlookers. At this moment, 2 men in the car carried out a man with a big golden chain from the driver's seat in horror and shouted in panic, "Brother Xiao! Brother Xiao! Brother Xiao!" There was a small, bloody hole in the forehead of the man called Brother Xiao. He couldn't open his eyes anymore. Chun Mingming slowly put on his headphones and then walked slowly through the crowd. When it was almost 10 p.m., Sir Ma, who was planning to go home, and Zhou Yusheng, who didn't plan to go home, met in the corridor of the police station. Ma Haod was about to say something casually, but before he opened his mouth, he received a call from Lin Feng, asking Zhou Yusheng to wait. Ma Haod answered Lin Feng's call, but within a few seconds, Ma Haod's face suddenly changed. What happened? Zhou Yusheng suddenly frowned. Sir Ma looked at Zhou Yusheng, stunned for a few seconds, and then said seriously, "Wu Rong is also dead. The body we just found is also dismembered, exactly the same as Wang Liang's." After making breakfast for his sister in the morning and watching her finish eating, Zhao Lu packed up and prepared to go to class. But not long after he went out, in the security booth at the entrance of the community, Zhao Lu was called by the security guard. "Zhao Lu, here's your express delivery." Express delivery? Zhao Lu was stunned. He didn't remember buying anything. "Yes, it was here early in the morning. I don't know who put it there, but it's written with your name." The security guard took out the package, which was about the size of a shoebox. "Thank you." Zhao Lu took it with a polite smile and then carried it to the bus stop. While walking, he opened the package tore the paper, and threw it into the dustbin. On the way, he opened the box. It was indeed a shoe box. Opening the box and looking at the thing inside, Zhao Li's pupils suddenly shrank. Chapter 1186. After receiving the call from Lin Feng, who was on a business trip, Officer Ma and Zhou Yuxing didn't have time to deal with it, because another murder case immediately disrupted their pace. The victim's name is Chang Xiao. He is the security director of a finance company, but he is actually a debt collector. The police officer who arrived first quickly reported, according to the people in the same line of work, Chang Xiao was driving at the time, but suddenly Chang Xiao's head tilted, then the car lost control and crashed into the safety bolt. When they dragged Chang Xiao out, Chang Xiao was no longer breathing, and there was only a bloody hole on his forehead, suspected to be a gunshot wound. When he heard the gunshot wound, Ma Hao's hand couldn't help but tremble. Xian's gun control was very strict, and it was not like foreign countries that had the so-called qualification to hold a gun. If the criminal had a gun and killed people in the downtown area, what was the victim doing before the accident? Zhou Yuxing asked in a deep voice. They had already rushed to the scene. There were many onlookers at the scene, but they were all isolated outside the cordon. The police officer said they were drinking in a bar not far behind. We asked, and the owner of the bar can testify. At the same time, we found traces of a fight in the back alley of the bar. The other two people in the car also confessed that they happened to encounter a debt collector, and after beating him up, they finally left. Ma Hao frowned. What about the debt collector who was beaten up? Oh, this person is called Qian Er. His identity has been verified. The police officer immediately replied. But when we found him, he was already dead drunk and unconscious. There were also traces of beatings and bloodstains on his body. Our initial estimation is that he may have slight internal bleeding, which matches what the other two said. Ma Hao nodded, and then went to see the so-called Qian Er with the police officer. The two came to Qian Er and saw that Qian Er reeked of alcohol and didn't seem to wake up. Did you do the test? Yes, 292 per 100 milliliters, the police officer quickly said. Sir Ma's eyes widened, and he shook his head. This guy doesn't care about his life. He's so drunk that he can't even stand up, let alone kill someone. Go, send him to the hospital. In fact, Qian Er was in the ambulance at the moment. Now that Sir Ma said that, the ambulance left first. At this moment, Zhou Yuxing walked over with an ugly expression. Old Ma, Chang Zhao's death might be the same as the one in the detention center. What? Ma Hao's expression changed slightly. Zhou Yuxing said seriously, before the accident, Chang Xiao was driving. He must have been facing the windshield, but there are no traces of damage on the windshield. Unless the two people in the car are lying, it's too strange. Ma Hao scratched his head and looked around. There are no surveillance cameras around here. How about this? Let's take the people in the same car back and interrogate them. Let's see if we can get an autopsy report out tomorrow. Zhou Yuxing could only nod. Sir Ma then said, Zhou, how about this? This place is close to your house. Why don't you go back first, take a shower, and have a rest? There are still many things to do tomorrow. I'm not tired. Zhou Yuxing shook his head. But I'm tired. Ma Hao patted Zhou Yuxing's back without hesitation. I won't feel at ease if I don't drag someone down with me. You old bastard. Zhou Yuxing couldn't help but laugh bitterly. You better go back first. Your wife has a second child, so it's right to take care of her. Anyway, someone needs to take care of this matter. I'm not tired, I'll do it. That's what you said. Ma Hao blinked. I didn't force you. All right. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Zhou Yuxing replied impatiently. Sir Ma took out a cigarette box and gave one to Zhou Yuxing. He also lit one for himself. It seemed that he planned to drive home after smoking. He patted Zhou Yuxing's shoulder and suddenly asked curiously, Zhou, you seem to have changed over the past 2 or 3 years. Why are you working so hard? Zhou Yuxing said casually, We're the police. If we don't work hard, who will? Ma Hao was stunned and leaned against the car door. If you said this a few years ago, I wouldn't believe you at all. But in the past 2 or 3 years, you've almost become a workaholic. I can't help but believe it. I still remember when our 2 teams worked together on a case. At that time, Captain Luo was still there, and the second team was led by Captain Gao. At that time, you were the most slippery one. You came to work on time and got off work on time. You either made excuses or were careless about some things. Everyone said that you were just here to waste time. Zhou Yuxing lowered his head, not knowing what to think. After all, they were at the same level now. Ma Hao laughed awkwardly. Zhou, I'm just lamenting. I don't mean anything else. Zhou. Zhou Yuxing pressed his palm to his forehead and rubbed it hard. He looked like he was in pain. Sir Ma became concerned. I'm fine. Zhou Yuxing shook his head and took out a small bottle from his clothes. He poured out 2 pills and stuffed them into his mouth. Then, he took a bottle of water from the car and drank a few mouthfuls. What medicine did you take? Zhou Yuxing adjusted his breathing and seemed to feel better. Just some headache medicine. It's nothing. How can you not have a headache? Ma Hao said unhappily. Look at you. You stay up late every day and often don't sleep. I wouldn't be surprised if you suddenly died one day. No. How about this? You go back and rest. I'll take care of the rest. No need. Zhou Yuxing shook his head. Ma Hao's attitude became firm. Are you going or not? If you're not going, I'm going to call Chief Lu and ask him to give you an order. This. Zhou Yuxing rubbed his forehead. He really did have a terrible headache. He could only say helplessly, all right, I'll go back first. Remember to see a doctor. Zhou Yuxing waved his hand, looking like he didn't hear him. Ma Hao was still worried. He called a colleague to drive Zhou Yuxing back. Captain Zhou, are you feeling better? Let me get you a glass of water. The colleague helped Zhou Yuxing down and onto the sofa in his house. No need. I can take care of myself. Zhou Yuxing leaned on the sofa and raised his head. He waved his hand and said, there's a lot to do at the station. You go back first. I'll be fine after some rest. I'll go back later. You should organize Chang Zhao's information as soon as possible. But Captain Zhou, why don't you rest more? With the team watching, it shouldn't be a problem. Just do as I say. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Zhou Yuxing's tone suddenly became heavier. The colleague could only nod. After pouring a glass of hot water, he quickly left. He thought that Captain Zhou might be in a bad mood these few days. However, for the past few years, Captain Zhou had basically been in a bad mood. He would scold people at the slightest provocation. Although his ability to solve cases was top-notch, under high pressure, the people in the team were also suffering. Maybe it's a family problem. Everyone knew that Zhou Yuxing's family wasn't very good. Today, when he helped him back, the house was empty. It was obvious. At the same time, he shook his head and took one last look at Zhou Yuxing before closing the door. After the colleague left, Zhou Yuxing was in a daze. His forehead and neck slowly broke out in cold sweat. He only felt that his mouth was dry and his chest was tight. He wanted to drink water, but his hand trembled. The cup fell to the ground and shattered. The sound of the cup shattering was like a switch. It made Zhou Yuxing go crazy and scream a few times. He crazily swept the things on the table away and even overturned the coffee table. He kept screaming at the empty house. The surroundings seemed to be split and stacked on top of each other. Zhou Yuxing opened his mouth in pain and slowly covered his ears with his hands. He knelt on the ground and finally curled up. He seemed to hear countless, repeated and loud sounds. Bang, 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 bang. This kind of sound. In the end, he fell to the ground. It was unknown whether he fell asleep from exhaustion or fainted. Subconsciously, Zhao Li's hands were weak. He almost couldn't hold the box in his hands. He took a deep breath and immediately closed the box. At the same time, he looked around nervously. The people on the road were rushing to work or school. No one was in a mood to notice Zhao Li's sudden loss of composure. He lowered his head and hugged the box. The direction he originally planned to go to the bus stop suddenly changed. He quickly walked to the nearest public toilet, walked into one of the cubicles, and closed the door. Zhao Li's eyes flickered. He quickly pushed his glasses and put his hands on the box and froze. Suddenly, Zhao Lu took a deep breath and directly opened the box. The silver pistol seemed to be heavy. He could even feel the weight on his leg. Zhao Lu took another deep breath and picked up the pistol. It still felt heavy. This was obviously a metal product, not a simple plastic toy. Under the silver pistol, there was a small paper card. Zhao Lu quickly picked it up and opened it. Hold the gun. Think of the person you want to kill, and the bullet will appear. You can kill people regardless of the distance. Then there were 2 sentences of explanation, nothing more. Zhao Lu was silent for a moment, putting the pistol and the paper back into the box. He pondered for a while before taking out his mobile phone. Social media app, blank profile picture. There was no message record. Zhao Lu quickly typed a line of words at this time. The gun, did you send it? After sending the message, Zhao Lu stared at the screen without blinking, silently counting the time. About a minute later, the screen showed a reply. No. After Zhao Lu saw the reply, he quickly typed a new message. I received a pistol today, but there were no bullets. Do you know who sent it? But after waiting for a long time, there was no reply this time. Zhao Lu gritted his teeth and typed again. The police came to find me. This time, there was still no reply. 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, there was still no reply. Zhao Li's eyes flashed with a trace of ferocity. Finally, he closed his eyes. After a while, it returned to normal. He cleared the message record, and the screen became blank again. Zhao Lu thought for a while and finally put the pistol and the small paper into his school bag, leaving the box behind. Then, he lowered his head and left here. Fortunately, there was no class in the first period. So, even if Zhao Lu was delayed for a long time, he was not late. His family's financial situation was not too good, but because of his good grades and excellent studies, he quickly qualified for the scholarship. Therefore, he would most likely not let himself make mistakes in school. Big classroom, public class. The teacher for today's class was Lecturer Gawain. This teacher's course was also one of the compulsory courses for Zhao Lu. He needed the course credits for this course. Of course, there were only 3 classes a week, so it was not a lot. But for Lecturer Gawain's class, those who were late would not be able to get a seat in front. Zhao Lu was not late, but he arrived at the right time. For this reason, he could only go straight to the seat in the back. Just as he entered the classroom through the back door, Zhao Lu saw a few malicious gazes. They were the students who had held him down and beaten him up in the upper floor yesterday. When the leader saw Zhao Lu enter through the back door, he narrowed his eyes and smiled. Then, he suddenly stood up. Zhao Lu lowered his head and quickly changed his direction. He hurriedly looked around. Suddenly, as though he had seen his savior, he quickly sat down. His seat was beside Chen Mingming. When the boys saw this, they gestured at Zhao Lu and then sat down with a sneer. The bell for class was about to ring. When Gawain came in, they would not be able to cause trouble. Although he was only a lecturer in the school, they did not know that Lecturer Gawain's father-in-law was in the upper echelon of the system and had hopes of being promoted to the province next year. These students' families had some assets and connections, but even their parents did not dare to offend them, let alone themselves. Mingming, I'll leave after class. I won't implicate you. Zhao Lu shrunk his neck and whispered to Chen Mingming. Chen Mingming glanced at him indifferently and then said, Let's start the class first. Lecturer Gawain slowly walked into the classroom from the front door. Because it was a different class, the students did not see Gawain's gaffe yesterday. Although some students would talk about it on the school forum, it did not have much of an impact. Gawain looked around at the students and finally saw Chen Mingming sitting at the back. He nodded slightly and said, Okay, students, let's start the class. Before turning on the projector, Gawain quietly turned on the camera on his phone and placed it on the podium. Then, he entered the classroom with a straight face and continued his lecture. Even when he saw Luocchio's figure suddenly appear in the empty seat midway, Gawain did not feel anything out of the ordinary. Sure enough, he still appeared. This was still a lecture that was up to standard. Just like the previous few times, when the bell rang, Gawain could not see Luocchio again, and no student could find out anything. Gawain stayed after class, as usual, and waited for some students to come forward to ask questions. When it was almost time for the next class, he packed up and left, returning to his office. Everything was as usual. On the way back, Gawain did not turn on his phone. Only when he returned to his office did he connect his phone to the computer and open the video he recorded during class. From the first second to the last second, Gawain did not fast forward for a single second. Chapter 1187. As usual, Miss May came to the boss' study room with cleaning tools and pushed the door open. In fact, with the club's strangeness, It was impossible for it to be contaminated with dust. Perhaps it would not be covered with a thin layer of dust until the end of time. She was just used to doing certain things. But today, Luaccio was in the study room. Miss Maid did not notice her master's arrival. This situation could only be said to be intentional by her master. Luaccio, who was sitting on the chair, leaned back naturally, letting the chair bear his weight and bend back automatically. He closed his eyes as if he was asleep, but also as if he was thinking about something. The door had already made a sound, which Miss Maid couldn't control because she didn't know that her master was already in the study room. "I'm just thinking about something. I don't want to be noisy." Luaccio slowly opened his eyes and smiled slightly. "Every time I come back, there will be a bigger commotion. This place is not as quiet as before. Except for Tienzi, who was stuffed into the mainframe. Taisetsu and Nero lived here today. Even Luoya, who rarely came out of her room, was here. If the atom used to support the Master God project was included, it was indeed different from the previous shop with only maids and the boss. I'll make tea for Master." "No need." Luaccio waved his hand. "I bought some soy milk on the way here. It's been many years. I used to drink it when I passed by when I was in school. The auntie should have sold it for more than 10 years. The taste hasn't changed for so many years. It's not easy. Come and try it." On the desk, the packed soy milk slowly appeared. She didn't know when he bought it, but the boss bought it back, so it was still warm. Miss Maid walked slowly to Luaccio's side. When she approached, she found that there were still 2 bullets standing on the desk in front of her master. She didn't drink the soy milk. Instead, she went behind Luaccio and gently touched Luaccio's hair with both hands. She touched his scalp and rubbed. No matter when, this kind of massage could always make people feel comfortable. 2 bullets. Yi said softly, "Master, are you thinking about Chun Mingming?" "Partly," Luaccio said. While enjoying the massage, his eyes fell on the 2 bullets standing on the table. He gave the gun away. "Master, are you going to continue observing Chun Mingming like before?" Miss Maid suddenly asked. "Not necessarily," Luaccio answered casually. Then he closed his eyes and leaned back a little, as if he intended to enjoy the maid's massage wholeheartedly. However, at this moment, Boss Luo suddenly opened his palm, and a cloud of black gas slowly emerged from his palm. Instantly, Miss Maid's movement stopped. She could feel that this trace of black gas contained an evil will. But Luaccio gently clenched his hand, and that trace of black gas was easily dispersed in his palm. Luaccio said indifferently, "I encountered some troublesome things 2 days ago. Something seems to want to jump out again." As long as he didn't become like the previous one, the master was bound to have negative emotions. Miss Maid was very clear about this. Although she had only served the club for less than 300 years, she had existed with another identity before that. The previous one had destroyed several masters, which was caused by this kind of negative emotion, so she was not surprised that Luaccio had this kind of situation now. "Master, you can kill the negative emotions at will?" This was the reason why Miss Maid was surprised. Even she was quietly affected by the negative emotions earlier, so she somewhat reacted. If Luaccio hadn't acted in time, she was afraid that some troubles would have been caused. "Actually, it has happened once before," Luaccio said indifferently. "It caused a big commotion last time. But at that time, I also wanted to see how far it could jump. Later, I felt that it was boring, so I scattered it casually. This time, it is much weaker than last time. This proves that the negative emotions can't affect you much." Miss Maid smiled with relief. Luaccio looked at his palm and suddenly said, "The new game DLC has been updated, right?" "Yes. I don't plan to go out today." Luaccio stood up and held Miss Maid's hand. "Let's go accompany me for a walk inside." The master seemed to be in a good mood. Of course, she was also in a good mood since she came back from the date that night. "By the way, take Loyal with you. She may be more adapted to the world in the game." Then, I will go and create an account for Loyal first. In a new DLC of Project God, in the depths of the demonic continent, Tienzi, who was dancing with a group of skeletons, suddenly sneezed in a huge ancient castle surrounded by thunder. "What the F***CK? Who is talking bad about me?" Mobile phone. I have completed the withdrawal procedures. You don't have to go to school these few days. Have a good rest at home for a while. Mom has something to do tonight. Find yourself something to eat. Okay. A notification of a transfer appeared on the screen. The transfer explanation was money for food. Shun Mingming didn't accept it. He just put the mobile phone on the table casually. After that, he didn't pay attention to it anymore, but continued to read the book in his hand. This was a book borrowed from the library. He didn't finish it at first. He planned to finish it in the next few days. There was no one else in the classroom except him. Suddenly, a noise came from outside the window, disturbing the silence here. Chun Mingming closed the book, walked to the window, pulled open the curtains, and looked outside. It was the passage downstairs. Several boys were running crazily in front at this time, laughing loudly. One of the boys was holding a pair of pants in his hand and kept waving it. The students on both sides of the road laughed loudly, because behind him, there was a boy wearing only underwear, chasing after him in grief and indignation. Zhao Lu, give it back to me. Get it back to me. Here you go. The boy holding the pants sneered at this time and threw the pants directly. However, he didn't throw it to Zhao Lu, but to a tree nearby. The pants were instantly caught by the branches and couldn't move. Zhao Lu seemed to want to rush forward, but looking at the pants hanging on the tree, he hesitated. As for the boys, after a few mocking words, they flashed into the crowd. Zhao Lu looked at the surrounding students and suddenly felt that the world was spinning. He could only try to pull his clothes as much as possible, trying to cover it up. However, the crowd didn't disperse. There were more looks of ridicule than pity, and there were more hands that raised the phone screen than those that reached out to help. Chun Mingming's face and ears were red. He suddenly felt that the world was like a huge whirlpool that was squeezing him and distorting everything. I wonder how he will get through this predicament. Chun Mingming didn't look at it. He just quietly returned to his original position, put on his earphones, and opened the book that he hadn't finished reading. He read carefully word by word. Captain Zhou. Hello, Captain Zhou. Along the way, Zhou Yuxing responded to the colleagues who greeted him. At the same time, he quickly walked back to the special case team's meeting place. It was almost time for dinner. After he was sent home by his colleagues last night, he lost control of his emotions. In the end, he didn't even know if he fainted or fell asleep because he was too tired. This sleep was very long, so long that it made him think of many things repeatedly. It was the afternoon of the next day. He slowly woke up. After waking up, Zhou Yuxing didn't have time to tidy up his things at home and hurried back to the police station. Perhaps it was because he had a good rest. Zhou Yuxing's face looked better. Old Zhou, it seems that you had a good rest this time. Seeing Zhou Yuxing walk in hurriedly, Sir Ma, who had a pair of rabbit-like eyes, greeted him casually. How is it? Zhou Yuxing sat down and asked directly. Just in time, Lin Feng just came back. You can also listen to what he has to say. Ma Hao pointed to a back that was preparing the projection and said. At this time, Lin Feng made an okay gesture, then asked someone to dim the lights and turn on the projector. Suddenly, several sets of photos appeared on the screen. Lin Feng said seriously, according to Ma Hao's order, another colleague and I rushed to Wu Rong's hometown. With the help of the local police, we quickly found Wu Rong's rented house. This is the freezer we found in her house. The photos were very clear, so the things in the freezer could be clearly seen. Lin Feng took a deep breath and said, the deceased was Wu Rong. After death, her body was decomposed with a sharp weapon, but the degree of decomposition was not as serious as Wang Liang's. Only the head, limbs, and body were separated into 13 pieces. After piecing them together, there was nothing missing. The murderer probably didn't have time to deal with it, or didn't have time to do more decomposition. How did you find it? Zhou Yuxing frowned and asked. Lin Feng said, it's similar to the situation when we found Wang Liang's body. It should be a short circuit caused by the power outage a few days ago. However, it wasn't the freezer that short-circuited, but the wires in the house she rented. I've checked that place. It's a village in the city, and the wires are everywhere, so it's easy to short-circuit. When we found the house, we smelled the stench. After opening the door, we found the freezer. Because it was placed in the middle of the house, it was easy to see. Have you asked the landlord? Ma Hao asked with his thumb. Yes, he did. Lin Feng quickly replied. But the situation is basically the same as Wang Liang's landlord. After signing the rental contract, the landlord usually transferred money via mobile phone and didn't meet directly. In addition, we also investigated Wu Rong's relatives and some friends. We found that during this period, Wu Rong always updated her status on her WeChat moments. The last time was 7 days ago. Ma Hao and Zhou Yuxing looked at each other. Zhou Yuxing said, the last time Wang Liang updated his status was also 7 days ago. From the way the crime was committed, it's very likely that the murderer is the same person. Ma Hao nodded and then looked at Lin Feng. Have you checked Wu Rong's interpersonal relationships? Lin Feng said, yes, Wu Rong's character isn't good. She has a bad temper and even doesn't have much contact with her family. She also left after resigning from the city. I went to her workplace before I came back and found out that she didn't really offend anyone. However, her colleagues don't like her, so she is usually alone most of the time. First it was Wang Liang, then it was Wu Rong. Sir Ma rubbed his red eyes, and his head was a mess. Zhou Yuxing knocked on the table with a pen. The meeting room suddenly fell into a silent atmosphere. After a while, Zhou Yuxing slowly asked, what about Zhao Lu? How's the investigation on him? Another colleague stood up. Because Lin Feng was temporarily on a business trip, he was handed over to him to conduct the follow-up investigation after the questioning. We've learned that Zhao Lu came to the hospital almost every day when Zhang Xiaoqin was hospitalized. Sometimes he even stayed overnight with her. He didn't come several times because he had exams and needed to review, but he didn't miss any exams. After Zhang Xiaoqin was discharged, Zhao Lu also stayed at home every day. The neighbors can testify. Oh, Officer Lin also asked me to check Zhao Li's travel record. Since Zhang Xiaoqin's accident, Zhao Lu has no record of leaving the city. Ma Hao sighed. Let's assume that the murderer is the same person, and let's boldly assume that Zhao Lu is the murderer. But Wu Rong's hometown is at least 4 hours away from the city by high-speed rail. Although the plane is fast, it's impossible not to leave any records. Besides, it'll take at least 1 day to go back and forth. But this guy has no record of going out. If he took a pheasant car, it'll take at least 3 days to go back and forth. That is to say, the assumption doesn't hold water? In fact, the inspection report also mentioned that there were no useful traces at the scene of the murder, not even fingerprints. Obviously, the murderer handled it carefully. The investigation seemed to have reached a dead end. Go and investigate the other women who were related to Wang Liang. Zhou Yuxing sighed. These women were also cheated of their money and feelings, and the friction between them was caused by Wu Rong's provocation. This motive is quite simple. Got it, Captain Zhou. Lin Feng nodded. Zhou Yuxing said, try to urge the police over there to provide a detailed inspection report. Also, I saw a few photos on Wang Liang and Wu Rong's Weibo. Check them and see where they were taken. The murderer knows how to use their photos to fake news that they are still alive. He must be a very well-planned person. If it wasn't for the power outage, who knows when we would have found the bodies. But the time has been delayed for so long. Many clues may have been lost, and the murderer had enough time to destroy most of the evidence. But justice has a long arm. I believe that there will be a flaw. Everyone work hard. Let's adjourn for now. Go back to work. Everyone work hard. This was Zhou Yuxing's mantra to make people work overtime. After everyone had left, Zhou Yuxing looked at Ma Hao and said, Old Ma, you can go back and rest. Oh, okay. I can't take it anymore. Sir Ma nodded. But at this moment, Xiao Bao hurried over with a document in his hand. He placed it in front of Sir Ma and Zhou Yuxing. Captain Ma, Captain Zhou, I have bad news for you. What's this? This is Chang Zhao's preliminary autopsy report. Xiao Bao said seriously. Chang Zhao's death was the same as the suspect's death in the detention center. They were both shot, but no bullets were found. What? Zhou Yuxing suddenly stood up. Ma Hao lowered his head, rubbed his forehead, and wailed, I want to go home. When they reached home, Zhao Lu took a deep breath, and a smile appeared on his silent face. He opened the door, lifted the bag in his hand, and said happily, Sis, I'm back. The supermarket had a discount today, so I bought your favorite pork shoulder. Let's eat braised pork shoulder tonight. Zhang Xiaoqin's door was closed. Chapter 1188. Zhao had learned to cook at home since he was very young. After so many years, his cooking skills were actually quite good. He knew his sister Zhang Xiaoqin's taste. It didn't take long to cook a meal. Naturally, he didn't need to cook too much for 2 people. 2 dizzy dishes and 1 vegetarian dish. Zhao Lu watched with satisfaction. Then, he took off his apron, walked to Zhang Xiaoqin's room, and pushed her out. A few months ago, Zhang Xiaoqin had failed to commit suicide. However, her legs were badly fractured and she had been recovering for a long time. The doctor said that if she continued to do rehabilitation exercises, she still had a chance to stand up. However, ever since Zhang Xiaoqin was discharged from the hospital, she hadn't gone to the hospital to do rehabilitation exercises. When she returned home, Zhao had been taking care of her. When he went to class, the kind neighbor took care of her. However, ever since she had committed suicide, Zhang Xiaoqin had barely spoken a word. Over the past few days, it was only when Lin Feng had come to visit and mentioned Wang Liang that Zhang Xiaoqin had become agitated and shouted at him to leave. "Sister, try it." Zhao Lu put a dish in Zhang Xiaoqin's bowl. He smiled and looked at Zhang Xiaoqin, waiting for her to pick up her chopsticks. However, Zhang Xiaoqin didn't move. Zhao Li's smile froze. He asked carefully, "Sister, don't you want to eat this? There's something else in the fridge. I'll make it for you." With that, he quickly stood up and walked to the kitchen. "Little Lu, I'm not hungry." "Sister, did you talk?" Zhao Lu was stunned. He suddenly turned around and walked quickly to Zhang Xiaoqin's side. He squatted down and grabbed his sister's hand. He smiled and smiled. "How nice." Zhang Xiaoqin's face was slightly pale and her cheeks were thin. She didn't look as good as before. She looked at Zhao Lu and said softly, "Annie brought me some food in the afternoon. I'm not hungry yet." Sister, you really talked. That's great. That's great." Looking at the face that had been by her side since she was young, Zhang Xiaoqin smiled. She reached out and stroked Zhao Li's cheek. "Find a time to take me to rehabilitation. I can't sit all the time." Okay. I'll go tomorrow. I'll go now." Zhao Li stood up immediately. "Are you stupid? Look at the situation now. I'm happy." Zhao Li was so happy that he got carried away. He grabbed the handle of the wheelchair and pushed Zhang Xiaoqin as if he had gone crazy. "Hey, stop spinning. I'm dizzy." "Are you dizzy? A little dizzy, you?" "All right, stop messing around. I'm really dizzy." "You child." It seemed that it had been a long time since the 2 of them laughed so loudly. If only time could slow down. After the siblings played around for a while, Zhao Lu fetched a basin of hot water and began to wash Zhang Xiaoqin's feet. Zhao Lu had heard that if one applied heat regularly, it could dredge the meridians. These days, Zhao had not stopped massaging her legs every day. "Sis, why did you suddenly?" After wiping the water stains on his calves and covering them with a blanket, Zhao Lu sat next to Zhang Xiaoqin, hesitating as if he was afraid of something. Only then did Zhang Xiaoqin reveal the reason. "A few days ago, 2 police officers came. Actually, I found out about that person's death." Zhao Lu silently grabbed Zhang Xiaoqin's hand. Zhang Xiaoqin sighed softly. "I'm really stupid. I'm already so old, yet I still can't see past it and still want to seek death. Zhao Lu, thank you for always taking care of me and not giving up on me. I've thought it through. Even if it's not for myself, for you, I should be strong and live well." Zhao did not say anything. He just lay on his sister's lap. When he was young, he would act like a spoiled child and listen to his sister's stories. Then, the stories would bring him to sleep. Zhang Xiaoqin patted his head and laughed. "You're already so old, yet you're still acting like a spoiled child. Let me do it for a while." Zhao Lu whispered as if he was begging. Zhang Xiaoqin did not say anything. She stroked Zhao Li's hair. Zhao Li seemed to have thought of something. "All right, sis, it's your birthday soon. Let's go out for a good meal that day. Just make it at home. Don't waste it." Zhang Xiaoqin shook her head. "You really love me. Don't make me feel guilty anymore, okay? Okay, then I'll come back early. Then, I'll make a good meal together." Zhao Li nodded. The siblings chatted for a long time. When Zhang Xiaoqin was tired and naturally fell asleep, Zhao Lu carried her to the bed and covered her with a blanket. He turned off the lights and went out. Then, he returned to his room. He turned on the desk lamp and looked at the calendar on the table. There was a date circled in red on the notebook. It was circled a long time ago. Perhaps he had been waiting for this day for a long time. However, the good things did not come until this day. He hoped to see his sister smile, but it came earlier than this. Zhao Lu sighed softly. It felt good. He suddenly remembered something. He quickly took out his school bag and took out the silver pistol from it. Then, he looked at the small card. He quickly picked up his phone and opened the social media app. He scrolled all the way until he selected the blank profile picture and entered the chat interface. He held the phone in one hand and the pistol in the other. He seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, Zhao Lu shook his head. He tore the small card into pieces and threw it on the trash can. He took a box and shook his head again. He put the silver pistol inside and then stuffed it on the top of the closet. After washing up, Zhao Lu went to bed with his clothes on. He had a good sleep. During class, the lecture hall was usually full of students. However, this time, a rather old teacher came into the lecture hall. Everyone looked at the old lecturer strangely. They all knew his identity. He was at the level of the deputy director. Students, Teacher Gao has taken a day off today. I'll be your substitute. Lecturer Gao, when took a day off, well, there was no way to take a day off because of something. However, some students knew that Gowan seemed to have something on his mind these days. It seemed to be expected that he would take a day off. In the cemetery, Gowan wore a black suit and held a bouquet of flowers in his hand. He walked through the many tombstones until he stopped on one of them. Putting the flowers on the tombstone, Gowan put his hands together in front of him. He lowered his head and was silent for a moment. Looking at the engraved words on the tombstone, Gowan suddenly smiled. You didn't like to eat when you were alive. I didn't know what to bring you. I don't know what's wrong with my people. I can't tell the difference between real and fake. Gowan slowly sighed. But don't worry, your family is doing well. I won't let anything happen to your family. But your wife is a troublemaker. But you don't have to worry. Those brothers of yours are all capable people. With them looking after them, I won't be able to find a place to make a move even if I want to. The only thing I could do was to ask the traffic police to make an exception for Old Ma every time he came with a ticket. But recently, there are no more tickets, so it's a lot easier. There was no one around. It was not a suitable day for worship. Gowan sat down with his back to the tombstone as if he was chatting with an old friend. It's already been 4 years. I've been teaching for 3.5 years, right? Actually, I'm really not suited to be a police officer. Teaching is more suitable for me. Luo Qi, I admire you my whole life. You're the kind of person who can carry out your beliefs to the end. You're indomitable and without any hesitation. Maybe it's because of this that you can gather so many people around you. Even I am unknowingly infected by you. There's a devil hiding in my heart. I think I can't defeat it in my life ever since I decided to do this from the beginning. I've seen your son these days, but I don't think I've seen him. Even now, I'm not sure if the first time your son appeared and asked me something was real or fake. Sometimes, I feel that I'm a really fragile person. He turned around and looked at the words engraved on the tombstone. Tell me, when can I be as strong as you say? But don't worry, you're perfect. He slowly stood up and faced the tombstone. I'll come to see you next time. I really want to have a drink with you in a small place after we're done with the case. Come with the heart when you see someone, leave with half of it, and next time. The car stopped at the entrance of the cemetery. Zhou Yuxing rubbed his hands and got out of the car with a bouquet of flowers. He wore sunglasses and looked around. The surroundings were covered with a layer of yellow. When he walked up the stairs and arrived at the destination, he saw a bouquet of flowers placed here. The cemetery was managed by someone, and there would be someone cleaning the offerings every day. Who came? Zhou Yuxing looked around, but he didn't see anyone. He didn't even see the janitor. Zhou Yuxing was silent for a moment. He quietly put down the flowers and said softly, Captain Luo, I've been busy recently. I'll come to see you next time and report to you. Until he returned to the place where he parked his car, Zhou Yuxing didn't see anything. He really couldn't find who had come before him. Come with the heart when you see someone, leave with all of them. Otherwise, you can't leave. The second strange death happened. This time, The suspects were the other 3 men who were in the same car as Chang Xiao. If there was anyone who had the ability to kill someone by shooting from the front without penetrating the windshield and windows, it could only be the people who were in the car with him. The 3 people in the car had been detained and were constantly being interrogated, but they didn't admit it. However, the way they died was the same as the one in the detention center. No bullet was found in the skull. Such a strange thing still couldn't be explained. It seemed possible that the murderer was the same person. Chang Xiao's case was soon stopped by Bureau Chief Liu. He contacted Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao again. As for Sir Ma, although he was a little angry, he was still investigating the dismembered body case. Moreover, there was one more victim, Wu Rong. At this time, it was not wise to divert his attention. Although Ma Hao was very suspicious of the people from the province who claimed that they were investigating. On the other side, Team 1 and Team 2 were investigating Wang Liang and Wu Rong's cases. These 2 cases have been merged into one. On the other side, Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao also started to deal with Chang Xiao's case and started to feel troubled. The reason why they were troubled was that if this incident was really done by a transcendent, then it was a bit too much. If the transcendent killed those who had committed the most heinous crimes, then the agency would not be able to do anything about it. Most of the time, they would just turn a blind eye to it. However, if it happened one after another, then it would be an insult to XIN. When one of the people in the detention center died, it could be said that it happened in the detention center, and only a few people knew about it. But this Chang Xiao, to put it bluntly, killed someone in a busy city, although most people thought that he died in a car accident. However, this was the second case, and there might be more in the future. This was not something that the agency could really tolerate. Besides, after the Mount Tai incident, the agency's attitude toward Kelowna and the Taoist and monster realm had become a little subtle. Brother Hao, where are we going? After leaving the place where the body was examined, Lu Mingho looked at the information in his hand and drove away, but he didn't go back to the dormitory where he worked. We're going to meet this guy called Qian Er, Lu Mingho said casually. Wei Zidao was stunned. Qian Er? He had read the report written by the police at the time, so he was even more confused. What's there to see about this Qian Er? The information said that he was beaten up and drunk. He didn't have the ability to fight at all. No matter what, he was the last person who came into contact with Chang Xiao. Lu Mingho thought and said, according to normal people's knowledge, Qian Er doesn't have the ability to fight. However, this incident is very strange at the beginning. Can we still deal with it normally? Brother Hao, you suspect that this Qian Er has abilities? Wei Zidao frowned. In the agency's intranet, there were all kinds of inquiries all the time. They were all uploaded by agents from all over the country in real time, so that the agents in the agency could gain more knowledge and deal with more unexpected incidents. Wei Zidao couldn't help but think of the most discussed thing in the past few days. Among ordinary people, there were more and more cases of abilities. At first, there were only a few newborns, but yesterday, there was an example of someone who could absorb metal. Although there were cases of so-called superpowers in the world, most of them were some kind of mutation of the body. There were billions of people in the world, so it was acceptable for 1 or 2 people to have a mutation of the body. However, this person who could absorb metal was not the same as the reported cases. He really had some kind of ability. Maybe he suddenly had the ability, even he didn't know. Lu Mingho shook his head and said, maybe he is just an ordinary person. But according to the current situation, there are no more clues, so we can only try our luck. Okay, here we are. Chapter 1189. The 2 quickly entered Qian Er's house. Perhaps it was because of Chang Xiao's death. The debt collectors hadn't appeared in the past 2 days. Qian Er was a bit arrogant. His house was in a mess. When Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao arrived, this guy was still sleeping on the sofa. But this also made it easier for the 2. Wei Zidao first took a metal bar and poked it all over Qian Er's body. Brother Hao, there's no abnormal energy reaction. It seems that he's not a metahuman. You can do it, Lu Mingho said casually, then moved a chair, covered his nose with a tissue, and sat down. Wei Zidao nodded and came to the front of Qian Er. He stretched out his hand to pinch a strange seal, muttered some words, and then touched Qian Er's forehead. This was some kind of small Taoist technique. The effect was similar to hypnosis. Of course, the effect of hypnosis varied from person to person and also from caster to caster. In school, Wei Zidao's grades in this field were very outstanding, so he graduated early and was officially promoted to an agent who could go out on duty. Under the effect of practical Taoist magic, Qian Er slowly opened his eyes, but his expression was dull and his consciousness was unclear. Lu Mingho began to ask some questions about what happened that night. What Qian Er said was basically the same as what several of Chang Zhao's companions gave to the police. Just when Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao thought that they wouldn't have any good luck this time, Qian Er's words showed some things that weren't recorded in the case. Gun? Lu Mingho frowned at this time. What gun? Who gave you the gun? Qian Er's eyes were empty, but his words were clear. A silver gun. I couldn't see his face. He said he could help me kill Chang Xiao, so I shot. What about the gun? Wei Zidao quickly asked. Qian Er slowly shook his head. I don't know. Lu Mingho stared at Qian Er for a long time, then waved his hand. Wei Zidao cast another spell at this time, and Qian Er fell on the sofa and fell into a deep sleep. Brother Hao, now there's a clue. Wei Zidao pondered and said, the victims in the detention center, including Chang Xiao, were all shot in the forehead and no bullets could be found. But Qian Er said that someone gave him a silver gun. Lu Mingho nodded. This gun is very likely to be a specially refined artifact. Perhaps this is the only way to explain its strange method of killing. But why didn't the mastermind do it himself? Why did he choose to give the gun to Qian Er? Then, was it a similar operation that time, in the detention center? Wei Zidao walked back and forth. He thought of something. If the murderer did it himself, he wouldn't have left Qian Er, a flaw that ordinary people can't find. And I'm afraid we still have no clue. But the murderer did this. Is it because the murderer can't use this gun directly? Or rather, using this gun requires certain conditions. Lu Mingho's mind raced madly. In fact, it's very likely that he's doing something like an experiment. If this is an experiment, then it is very likely that there will be another victim. Wei Zidao suddenly reacted. Brother Hao, if this is the case, then it's too dangerous. Don't panic. This is just our guess. Lu Mingho shook his head. If it's really a gun that shoots a bullet to kill people, and the bullet disappears automatically after killing people, then this gun is not an ordinary artifact. Think about it. Not to mention the cell in the detention center, just Chang Xiao. The car is sealed. It can only be said that the bullet suddenly appeared in front of him and killed him head-on. Think about it. This kind of method that ignores space, among the many Taoist methods that we have learned, is there anything similar? Wei Zidao thought and said, I heard that some powerful cultivators can use a kind of Taoist method that can teleport people thousands of miles in an instant. And many Taoist sects also have the escape method that can pass through walls. Passing through walls is only suitable for energy bodies like ghosts. Normal people, even Taoists or demons, can't do it. In this regard, the development department has done countless tests. It can only be said that this artifact can generate energy similar to bullets within a specified range. After killing people, the energy will disappear, and so will the bullets. Lu Mingho shook his head. It's not impossible to tear through space, but the energy required is too strong. Even the center of a nuclear bomb explosion doesn't have this ability. It's not that the energy is not enough, but that our method of using energy is still very low level. Wei Zidao said, I've heard Dr. Zhao's lecture. He mentioned that with the current methods of human beings, they are still lacking in the method of using energy. As for Taoist demons, they are more advanced than us, but it may not be the end. Lu Mingho waved his hand. Let's not talk about this. We only need to know that someone gave the gun to Qian Er, and this person appeared in the alley. In this way, we are not completely clueless. Let's go to that alley. Luoxia was quite satisfied with the optimized world in the game, but he didn't stay for too long. It was just an excursion. He didn't even look for the main god, who was having fun in the castle. Luoya was still the same. When she went in, she was unfamiliar with everything, and when she came out, she was still unfamiliar with everything. Only when she was by Luacio's side did she reveal a secretly relieved expression. Luacio didn't leave Luia's room until she slowly fell asleep. "Master, are you going home?" Miss Maid appeared beside Luacio and asked softly. This didn't seem to be different from the past. At that time, Luacio would come up early and go home to rest after dinner. It was the same regardless of rain or shine. "Okay, see you tomorrow." Luacio nodded with a smile. Yui liked this answer because tomorrow was very fast for her. In the long years, such a short wait was nothing more than a small hibernation. She was born in a club. Now, 300 years had passed, and she had experienced 2 bosses. The new boss made her gradually recover from some kind of coldness. Naturally, she wanted to cherish her current master more from the bottom of her heart. She was even more unwilling to have a new master to replace him in the future. She only needed to close her eyes gently and wait for one night to see him again. What else was there to hope for? She didn't even feel strange. She didn't have such a strong idea in the past, but now she had such an idea. She just felt good, as if she had broken through some shackles in the dark and obtained some kind of permission. Luacio was also curious. He felt that his Miss Maid seemed to have a touch of smoke and fire. In Luacio's eyes, at this time, Miss Maid, without the body of an alchemy puppet, became more and more resplendent in his black and white vision. He could freely embrace and possess the resplendence of her. He didn't choose to leave as usual. Instead, he took Yuye's hand and came to her usual seat. He quietly watched her hibernation until she was immersed in the puppet's body and her soul was hazy. He was willing to leave. Luacio didn't extinguish the candles in the hall. Letting the candles accompany her, he gradually disappeared from here. It temporarily meant that his day as a boss was almost over. Vaguely, Luacio felt that he seemed to have some kind of connection with the altar that he couldn't understand. It seemed that the relationship between him and the altar was closer than before. He still couldn't figure out the thoughts of the altar, but it seemed that the altar began to actively respond to some of his thoughts. Perhaps it became more dull, such as closing the door. The real closing. As long as he appeared, the passive situation that was bound to be a transaction was a little different. Luacio intuitively felt that he seemed to be able to freely turn on and off this passive ability. This situation, which was not suitable for him, would not happen again. Luacio couldn't tell whether this was good or bad. It seemed that the altar gave him a higher degree of freedom. But if it was a higher degree of freedom, it seemed that he was more suitable for the altar's needs. Had his emotions been unknowingly worn out to the extent that he himself felt that they were dispensable? But his heart was still filled with all the people in these years, and there was no difference. He vaguely felt that there seemed to be some kind of opportunity, but it was gone in a flash. He didn't even realize it, or it was because of something more irresistible that he forgot about it. The moment he stepped out of the club, Luacio even had a strange feeling. The altar seemed to want him to continue like this. She felt as if a pair of hands were gently hugging her. In fact, the white Alpha had been parked outside the police station for the past 2 days. In fact, there were 2 other similar Alpha in different places. One was in the University of Political Science and Law, and the other was in the Traffic Police Brigade. There was no doubt that this was the arm of Miss Song. After collecting a large amount of information through the Zhang family, they finally narrowed down the suspects to 3 people back then. Miss Song Ying, who was sent over, was quite persistent and even went into action personally. However, this kind of monitoring work was actually boring. At least these days, she just stayed in the car without doing anything. The food she ate and drank was bought from the street, which was not exquisite. She didn't even exercise. Song Ying felt that a layer of oil seemed to be squeezed out of her stomach. Miss Song suddenly felt a little wronged. Why did she have to be so careful? So angry. She moved the seat, almost half lying down. Song Ying, who felt moldy, yawned and asked casually, "Did Zhou Yuxing really not come out again?" "No, miss." The person beside her answered quickly. At the same time, he saw that this seemed to be the limit of Miss Song's mental strength. So he said, "Miss, how about I send someone to send you back to the Zhang family to rest? Leave this kind of work to us." "Then wouldn't I have wasted my hard work these days?" Song Ing suddenly snorted, damn it, damn it. Don't let me find out the truth. So fierce, so fierce. In fact, Miss Song Ying also had her own little drama in her mind. The noble and cold Miss Song Ying threw a pile of information on the table, arrogantly. See, I found out the truth about you. It's effortless. So Luochio looked at her with admiration. Song Ying, you're so amazing. I didn't know that you cared so much about me. I'm sorry, I didn't treat you well in the past. Can you give me a chance? Miss Song Ying, you know you're wrong. Unfortunately, it's too late, unless you... Miss. At this moment, the bodyguard felt that something was wrong with his Mississippi. After an inexplicable strange smile appeared on his face, he couldn't help but call out carefully. Huh? Oh, nothing. I suddenly thought of something. Song Ying's expression didn't change. She lifted the curtain and glanced out. Oh, right. Withdraw the people from the traffic police and focus on investigating Gao and Zhou Yuxing. The bodyguard nodded, agreeing with what Song Ying said. Today, they had found Gao and Zhou Yuxing in the cemetery one after another. Okay, I'll go and give the order now. Song Ying continued. Later, run further away and don't buy me any rice or soy milk. It makes me want to vomit. The evening lights had already been lit, and the streets had turned from bustling to sparse. It was almost the end of the evening meal. Understood. The bodyguard nodded and said casually, There's a place selling steamed chicken at the end of the street. Miss, do you want to try it? Song Ying waved her hand indifferently. It's up to you as long as it's not soy milk or rice. I'll go right away. The bodyguard immediately moved. There were two bodyguards in the driver's seat in front. They were both experienced people, so it shouldn't be too big of a problem for her to leave for a short time. Thinking about this, the bodyguard went to open the door of the car. But at this moment, the door was knocked a few times. The knocking sound made the bodyguard frown, and at the same time, Song Ying's expression turned serious. The bodyguard blocked Song Ying with one hand and pressed the other hand behind his waist. Then he abruptly pulled open the door of the Alpha and shouted sternly, Who is it? A smiling young man in plain clothes stood outside the car door with two bags in his hands. Luochio. Master Chiu? The bodyguard naturally recognized the new young master of the Song family at first glance and couldn't help but be caught off guard. Of course, Song was also caught off guard. She widened her eyes and opened her mouth. After a long time, she squeezed out some words that weren't very polite. You, this guy, where did you come from? I was passing by and saw you here, so I came to see you. Luochio smiled slightly. I guess you didn't eat anything, so I bought some. Master Chiu, you're so considerate. The bodyguard's attitude naturally changed. They were trained and instilled with the idea of serving the Song family. It was quite the style of a servant in ancient times. Are you so kind? Song Ying snorted in a low voice. You're not here to laugh at me, right? Thank you for doing so much for me. Luochio said softly. Song Ying's imposing manner was instantly defeated. What did you buy? Let me tell you, I'm not the kind of person who will stuff rubbish into the king's stomach. Soy milk and rice. Do you want to eat? Luochio lifted the bag in his hand. It's an old shop. I used to eat it often. It's not bad, and it's still warm. Oh no. The bodyguard sighed. This was what the young miss specifically said she didn't want. Sure enough, Song Ying's lips trembled. Okay, then I won't make it difficult. Chapter 1190. The driver and the two bodyguards in the front passenger seat also got out of the car. The three bodyguards ran to a convenience store not far from the car, about 10 seconds away. They found a table facing the street and sat down. Is it okay for us to be so far away from Miss? One of them asked curiously. Only Miss. Oh, and Master Chiu were left in the car. Do you think Master Chiu will hurt Miss? His companion asked angrily. The people in the car were likely to take over the Song family in the future. Not really. Or, in another sense, it's not bad to hurt him. The bodyguard chuckled. I think old Master Chiu will be happy to see Master Chiu take Mrs. Blood. F***CK off. The person behind slapped him on the back of the head. Since when is it your business to discuss Miss and young master's matters? After finishing his meal, he went outside to keep watch. Although we're outside the police station, we can't relax. Is it rice? The bodyguard swallowed his saliva and finally chose to ask for a cup of instant noodles from the shop assistant. To be honest, although many people in the Song family village were Chinese or descendants of Chinese, they had been eating South American food since they were young. It wasn't that Chinese food tasted bad, but they couldn't get used to it. Moreover, they had to eat the same food continuously. Instant noodles, on the other hand, were different. This thing was pretty popular overseas. The Song family had mercenaries trained in the village behind their backs. They carried out many dangerous missions in secret. Some of the Song family's warriors failed their missions and were locked up in prison. It was said that instant noodles were a hard currency in prison, and their status was on par with cigarettes and perfumed soap. In the backseat of the Alpha, Song Ying was taking small bites of porridge. It was rare to see Miss Song eating in such a ladle-like manner, as if she was eating a delicacy meticulously prepared by a 3-star Michelin chef. A piece of porridge could be finished in a few bites, but Miss Song could not even finish 1/3 of it in a few minutes. Not used to it? No, I'm just thinking about something. Song Ying shook her head and put it down. She looked at Luochio and said, "Today, my men discovered that Gao Wen and Zhou Yuxing both went to your father's grave." Luochio frowned. Song Ying hurriedly said, "My people are very careful. They didn't destroy Uncle Luo Chi's tomb. Don't worry. I even asked someone to donate money to the management office so that they have to clean it up every morning and night." "Thank you." Luochio smiled. Song Ying said, "Your father is a member of the Song family after all. He's also my uncle. It's only right for me to do this. By the way, your family doesn't live here, right? I was just passing by. Are you here to investigate Zhou Yuxing too? How could they pass by on the way?" Song Ying calmed down and thought about it carefully. She roughly understood why Luochio was here, but this bastard still had some conscience. He knew to buy some food. I can't say for sure." Luochio shook his head slightly. "It's just that I have to meet some people in the end." Luochio seemed to be in low spirits. After saying this, he looked out of the car window at the entrance of the police station. Song Ying hesitated for a moment. Suddenly, her eyes lit up and she asked, "Luochio, I have something to ask you." "Go ahead." Song Ying moved closer. "I'm just saying hypothetically. Suppose the real culprit is caught. What do you plan to do?" Luochio retracted his gaze and turned to look at Song Ying. They were very close to each other. Because the other party had moved, the distance between them was less than a finger's length. Their eyes met. Song Ying only felt a sudden heat covering her face from the inside out. But she didn't move, nor did she intend to retreat. With the Song family's ability, even if you want to shoot the culprit on the spot, we can guarantee that you'll be fine. The next day will be the same as usual. So what do you think? That's right. What should I think? Luochio whispered. According to qualifications, I have the qualifications. Song Ying was stunned. Qualifications? This bastard, is he too calm? Don't you want revenge? Song Ying asked subconsciously. Luochio shook his head and said faintly, For me, there are some things that are missing when one is done. However, if it's really needed less, I'll still make it less. Song Ying looked at Luochio confusedly. Suddenly, she did something that surprised her, but she didn't regret. She suddenly opened her hands and hugged Luochio's head tightly. Boss Luo was quite astonished at this moment. Until he completely clung to the soft part of her chest, he could hear her gradually accelerating heartbeat. Song Ying only felt waves of heat on her face. It must be very uncomfortable. The enemy is clearly in front of you. When I was a child, when my parents died, tragically in front of me, I also felt this uncomfortable. I know who the culprit is, but I was very young, really young. Not to mention revenge, I didn't even dare to kill a chicken. I didn't even dare to let Grandpa feel that I was in pain. I could only cover myself with a smile and innocence. I was afraid that they would be sadder because of me. I understand, but you don't have to pretend to be strong. If it's really uncomfortable, it's okay. I won't laugh at you. The car suddenly became quiet. After Song Ying finished speaking, she could hear her own heartbeat clearly. But Luochio didn't say anything. She just hugged him like this. Hey, can't you at least say something? Song Ying called out softly with some discomfort. The discomfort was because her nose touched his hair. It was itchy. This fellow, could it be that he had fallen asleep? What kind of plot is this? There's a level of idiocy. Okay, you were so energetic when you came. Do you think you're the male lead of a shoujo manga? My waist, complaining in her heart. Song Ing wanted to push the fellow in her arms away, but the more she thought about it, the more she couldn't bear to do so. Perhaps it was just like when she was young. She would only show her painful emotions when there was no one around. Sleep, sleep. If you really fall asleep, I'll accept it. Song Ing raised her head and slowly exhaled. If she lowered her head, she would definitely sneeze. But when she looked at the roof of the car, her eyes suddenly blurred, and some strange scenes flashed by like flashes of light. She saw a bustling city. The degree of prosperity even surpassed all the international metropolises in the world. She saw hundreds of tall buildings everywhere, and cars suspended in the air. It flashed by. She saw the land covered in the flames of war, as if she had returned to the era of 60 or 70 years ago. It flashed by again. The sky was gloomy. Countless huge factories were emitting thick smoke, and the world seemed to be dyed with a layer of gray. People lowered their heads, walking in an orderly manner, without any deviation, without saying a word. The world was moving, and the world was silent. Suddenly, a ferocious giant beast jumped over the wall that was tens of meters high and swooped down from above, pouncing toward Song Ing. Its bloody mouth was the most terrifying thing she had ever seen. Song Ing subconsciously cried out in alarm, only to feel cold all over. Finally, she saw the beige leather roof of the car. Luochio instantly opened his eyes. Dimension. At the same time, those things that flashed by disappeared in front of Song Ying's eyes. It was as if something was pulling her back. She subconsciously lowered her head and saw Luochio's calm eyes. What happened to me? Song Ying subconsciously asked. Luochio said, You suddenly screamed. Song Ying frowned, only to feel a little dizzy and even a faint swelling pain. She shook her head. Maybe I was distracted. My brain was suddenly in a mess, and I saw some strange things. It's nothing. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. Luochio muttered and stared at Song Ing seriously. Have you encountered such a situation before? This made Song Ing subconsciously lower her head. I don't remember. I don't think so. You seem to be quite concerned, then rest more. Luochio nodded. Surveillance work like this, leave it to the professionals. I'll watch. Song Ing nodded. It's getting late. I'll go back first. Luochio said goodbye, got out of the car, and looked at Song Ing before leaving. Thank you for letting me have a good sleep. I'll treat it as returning it to you. Song Ing said indifferently. Didn't you sleep with me last time? One time each. We're even now. Luochio smiled. The perfume tastes good. The corners of Miss Song's mouth curled up into a smile. After that, Missing leaned on the driver's seat in front of her, watching Luo Chi gradually disappear in front of the windshield, muttering, Even a dead man can praise people. Miss, Master Chiu left? The bodyguard didn't dare to come back until now. Song Ing said grumpily, Are you blind? Can't you see it? The bodyguard looked at the other bodyguard, and the other bodyguard looked at the third one. They just looked at each other without speaking. By the way, find me the nearest beauty salon. I want to find someone to give you a massage. Song Ing sat down with her hands on her waist. I'm so tired. My waist. The bodyguard looked at the other bodyguard, and the other bodyguard looked at the third one, and then gulped. Tired? Waist. Waist is tired. So, young Master Chiu is so fierce. He came here on the street? Got it. The bodyguard nodded quickly. Miss, you've worked hard. In the dark alley, two men wearing black suits and carrying suitcases appeared. They were Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao. Lu Mingho was a bit of a neat freak. Since he walked into the alley, he had been covering his mouth and nose with a handkerchief. As for Wei Zidao, now he pulled a cordon at the entrance of the alley. Brother Hao, the front and back are blocked. No one should break in. Wei Zidao walked back quickly. Lu Mingho looked at the ground. Chin air. The place where he was beaten should be here. Let's get to work. Wei Zidao nodded and began to take out some bottles, jars, and a bronze mirror from the suitcase. Some people once thought that if they could go back to the scene of the murder, they would be able to directly see the murderer and the process of the murder. In this way, many unsolved cases could be effectively solved, and there wouldn't even be cases that were wrongly accused. But this was just an unrealistic assumption. How could you go back in time? According to the theory of relativity, as long as you were faster than light. At present, it was still wishful thinking. That said, it didn't hinder people's imagination to build the future. Human beings were indeed the most imaginative and creative species in the world, especially after they came into contact with a strange way of using energy, such as Taoist magic arts. The administration had developed another method of tracking. At this time, Wei Zidao sprinkled the contents of the bottle around, and then sat on the ground with his legs crossed. Then he cut his finger with a knife and dripped 3 drops of blood on the bronze mirror. The blood was quickly absorbed by the bronze mirror. The bronze mirror suddenly became pure black. Lu Mingho didn't stay idle at this time, but walked behind Wei Zidao and put his palm on it. Wei Zidao's eyes were closed at this time, and the bronze mirror in his hands began to shake slightly. A little light suddenly appeared on the pure black mirror. There was no bright spot, just a small one. After that, the second bright spot appeared, but it was on the other side of the mirror. The bright spots began to appear little by little, and they were distributed on different positions of the bronze mirror irregularly. The closer to the center, the brighter, and the dim spots on the edge. After that, Wei Zidao slowly opened his eyes, and his face was pale and sweaty. Brother Hao, it's done. There are a total of 59 different breaths that pass through this alley in these days. Lu Mingho nodded. To be precise, we only need to investigate 54 breaths. Wei Zidao nodded, including Qian Er, Chang Xiao, and a few others. 54 people. Lu Mingho murmured at this time. Although it's a lot, it's much better than looking for a needle in a haystack. Let's start with this. In the alley, an iron door slowly opened, and a young man in a waiter's uniform came out with 2 bags of garbage. If there was anyone who could easily come to this place, of course, it was the staff of the bar next to it. Wei Zidao saw this and directly got up. Lu Mingho smiled at this time. Take a rest. I also know hypnotism. What do you want to do? Seeing the 2 men coming towards him, the waiter couldn't help but feel a little nervous. But before he could do more, he felt darkness in front of his eyes and lost consciousness. When the elevator door opened, there happened to be a fashionably dressed man standing outside the door. Zhou Yuxing frowned and glanced at him. This was his neighbor. This man should be planning to go out, but it was almost 11 p.m., so he probably wasn't going to proper place. Hello, Officer Zhou. The man quickly greeted him and then walked into the elevator with his head lowered, as if he was a little scared. Zhou Yuxing simply nodded and walked out of the elevator. The man pressed the elevator button and suddenly said, Officer Zhou, are you all right? Are you at home these days? Nothing. Zhou Yuxing said indifferently. A cabinet at home is broken. I took it down and fixed it. Did I disturb you? No. The man nodded. Fix the cabinet? Who would believe that? This guy usually didn't come home, but whenever he came home, he would make a noise. God knows what the hell he was doing. But Zhou Yuxing used to come home drunk, and after coming home, he would quarrel with his wife and sometimes even fight, breaking things in the house. As a neighbor, he was already used to it. But in the past 2 or 3 years, this kind of situation didn't seem to happen for a long time. Zhou Yuxing also didn't come home for 2 or 3 days. But his wife and son didn't come back for a long time. Later, it was said that his wife moved out with his son, and it seemed that they had divorced. Opening the door and turning on the lights, Zhou Yuxing pinched his eyebrows. What he saw was a mess in the living room. The coffee table was broken, the TV was also on the ground, and even the sofa was tilted to one side. Things were everywhere. Zhou Yuxing closed the door, sighed, and walked in. He picked up an ornament on the ground and seemed to want to put it somewhere, but when he looked, there was no place to put it, so he casually threw it back on the ground. He covered his face with both hands and wiped it hard. Then he turned off the lights, walked to the sofa, and sat down. He raised his head and closed his eyes. The room was terribly quiet. In the darkness, A figure suddenly appeared out of thin air silently. Looking at the bearded Zhou Yuxing who smelled of alcohol, Luocio's eyes gradually turned cold. He slowly reached out his hand and slowly reached out to Zhou Yuxing's neck. His 5 fingers pinched down. Once again, the boss's left eye turned into chaos, but this time he controlled it very well and didn't bring out the horrible vision like last time. But even so, everything around him floated up little by little. Zhou Yuxing still didn't open his eyes, even though he looked painful at this moment. The suffocating pain finally triggered Zhou Yuxing's instincts. He kicked his feet and put his hands on his neck, grabbing the hand that was strangling him. Finally, Luocio's hand loosened little by little. He slowly exhaled. Zhou Yuxing's expression began to soften, and he fainted. The floating things in the living room gradually fell down. Luocio closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he had returned to normal. He opened his palm, and a cloud of black gas came out of it. Luocio clenched his fist and dispersed it. He also sat down beside Zhou Yuxing and slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, Zhou Yuxing had a dream. It was a dream that he wanted to forget, but didn't dare to forget. It was a dream that he hid every day and night for nearly 4 years. In the police car, everyone was fully armed. The criminals have a lot of weapons. Repeat, the criminals have a lot of weapons. Chapter 1191. Calling on the 9th floor, I hope someone is injured and killed a criminal. Requesting for help. Zhou Yuxing took a long breath, watching Luo Qi coming in, watching his every move. Maybe there's still hope. Luo Qi stood up. Before this, he had checked the injuries of the 2 companions. At least they were still breathing. Zhou Yuxing nodded subconsciously. He looked at Luo Qi, a man of similar age to himself. This was a man who could think of the word perseverance just by looking at his eyes. I've been chasing this guy all the way. I didn't expect you to be here. Luo Qi looked around and asked casually, Old Zhou, did you also hear the sound and chase here? Because they had cooperated many times, most of the members of the 1st and 2nd teams knew each other. Besides, they usually worked in the same building, so they knew each other after all. Zhou Yuxing shook his head and then nodded. At this time, his thoughts were in a mess. He hadn't completely accepted what happened in front of him. Luo Qi didn't say anything, silently patting Zhou Yuxing's shoulder. His eyes were still shining with dazzling light. Dazzling. Zhou Yuxing looked down at his companions on the ground, perhaps to avoid them, or perhaps to look at the 2 young people. They did a good job. Luo Qi grabbed Zhou Yuxing's shoulder hard, then held Zhou Yuxing's cheeks with both hands, and forced him to face himself. Don't forget our identity. When we're afraid, when we're scared, no matter what, we must stand in the front row, even if we fall down. Now, take a deep breath. Dazzling. Zhou Yuxing suddenly quivered, like a drowning man who suddenly recovered his breath. He took a deep breath of the air mixed with the smell of smoke. I'm fine. Zhou Yuxing slowly sighed again, looking at Luo Qi's eyes. What's the situation now? Luo Qi quickly said, It's hard to say. These guys don't look like ordinary robbers. We've rescued one hostage, but there's another one left. He was taken all the way upstairs, which is the most troublesome. In the building, it's difficult for the snipers outside to shoot. We plan to force the guy who took the hostage to an open place as much as possible. Already rescued one? Zhou Yuxing opened his mouth slightly. How long had it been? It was Yi Yin who saved him. Luo Qi smiled and said, This kid is very powerful. All right, you stay here and watch. There can't be a gap in the encirclement. Be careful. With that, Luo Qi exhaled, lifted his spirits, and walked out of the door. Hold on, Captain Luo. What's wrong? Luo Qi turned around in confusion and looked at Zhou Yuxing as if he wanted to say something. You're not afraid? What's there to be afraid of? Luo Qi quickly patted his chest as he smiled and said, Aren't you here as well? Brother Zhou, you weren't afraid when you went deep into the enemy's territory 5 years ago. 3 years ago, you weren't afraid when you faced the criminals alone. If you weren't afraid, why should I be? It's not convenient for me to ask about Team 2's internal affairs, but, Brother Zhou, you've rested enough, haven't you? Zhou Yuxing stood rooted to the ground. Rest. Did he just treat the decadence of these days as rest? His departing figure was just like his eyes, emitting a light that Zhou Yuxing couldn't face. He suddenly understood why Luo Qi's eyes were so bright. It was because of trust. He trusted himself and was willing to trust others. Scenes of the past flashed through Zhou Yuxing's mind. He had made great contributions, the first-class kind. He had been in danger, the kind that could easily consign him to eternal damnation. Logically speaking, his career should have been bright. But Gawain came, the son-in-law of a superior. Gawain had also made great contributions, been injured, and gone through fire and water. There was nothing to be picky about. They were on the same starting line, but the only thing Gawain had ahead of him was another layer of identity. There were too many people in the system. Everyone was outstanding and capable, but it was not Zhou Yuxing's turn to choose the best. Perhaps it was fate to be in the same place as someone who was equally capable and outstanding, but had more resources than him, including Luo Qi. Luo Qi didn't have many resources, but he was really capable of controlling such a group of capable subordinates. What do I have? Zhou Yuxing asked himself subconsciously. He was capable, but he was dispirited. He also had time, but he spent elsewhere. He tried hard, but after one setback, he couldn't get back up again. He felt that he was proud, and proud people were the most fragile. So he became a pile of dog sh*t, degenerating into himself, and couldn't blame anyone else. You're a useless man. What else can you do other than throw a tantrum at me, the person who sleeps beside you? His relationship with his wife became worse and worse, and he didn't know when and where his life began to diverge. Zhou Yuxing looked at the two young men lying in a pool of blood, waiting for rescue. A few minutes ago, they had asked him, "Brother Zhou, have you been involved in any major cases before?" "I'll tell you later." This was the only answer Zhou Yuxing could give. "I was once glorious, but that was only once. I was once glorious, so that's good. Even if I'm down now, I was once glorious. Those things can be cherished, things that can be used to cover up my shame." It shouldn't have been long, but the rescue companions came. When they rushed into the room and hurriedly helped the two young men who had been led astray by him, Zhou Yuxing took a deep breath. "Send the injured men away first. I'll go support Captain Luo." Zhou Yuxing looked at the people who came to support him, then took a deep breath and picked up the bullets they were equipped with from the two injured young men. Seeing Zhou Yuxing's sullen face and walking out, the rescue team couldn't help but be surprised. What's wrong with him? This didn't seem to be the behavior of a person who retreated in the face of trouble, who had long given up on himself and was just planning to muddle along. Zhou Yuxing quickly caught up with Luo Qi, which even surprised Luo Qi. At this time, Luo Qi was leaning against the wall at the corner of corridor. "The support team has carried away the men in their hands. Don't worry." Zhou Yuxing didn't say too many unimportant things, and his eyes were as sharp as a falcon's. The criminals took hostages. If they are professionals, they will definitely think that we intend to lead them to a convenient position for snipers to shoot, so they won't fall for the trap. "Are the criminals inside?" Zhou Yuxing asked directly. Luo Qi nodded. "Two people, one hostage. We can't wait." Zhou Yuxing took a deep breath. "Let's end this quickly. You have a way?" Zhou Yuxing nodded, then turned around and suddenly hit the fire protection device on the wall with the handle of his pistol. In an instant, the shrill bell rang through the entire building under construction. Don't kill me." The security guard fell to the ground in pain, and blood kept flowing from his shoulder. It was shot through by the thugs. He was really frightened, and his face was covered with mud. But he didn't dare to move because the cold muzzle was pointed at the back of his head. Behind him were two fierce-looking Southeast Asians in vests and holsters. They seemed to be able to speak Chinese. At this moment, the ear-piercing sound of the fire alarm instantly made the two thugs tense up. "Damn it, what do they want to do?" "Brother, what should we do now? There are only two of us left." The man called Brother quickly said, "We have a hostage, so they don't dare to attack. This is our only chance." "You don't have a chance, surrender." At the entrance, a figure suddenly rushed out, directly interrupting the conversation between the two thugs. Zhou Yuxing stared at the muzzle of his gun, aiming at the two thugs, and made a shooting posture. You've been surrounded. Our people will arrive in 2 minutes at most. Don't count on your companions. You're the only ones left. Surrender. Surrender? Ha ha ha. The thug laughed grimly and casually fired a few shots with the SMG in his hand. This forced Zhou Yuxing to hide behind the wall at the entrance. Come out. If you don't come out, I'll kill this hostage. I'll count to 3. Wait, don't count. Zhou Yuxing took a deep breath and stepped out. Put your gun down. Zhou Yuxing squatted down little by little and put the pistol on the ground. Kick it over. Zhou Yuxing gritted his teeth and kicked the pistol away. After that, the other thug instantly picked up the pistol that was kicked away. You come here. Zhou Yuxing came closer little by little with a little fear in his eyes. I can replace the hostage. Let go of this security guard. He's injured and he's bleeding so much he'll die after a long time. Then you won't have a hostage. On the contrary, if I replace him, you still have a chance. You're not qualified to negotiate with me. Think carefully. Zhou Yuxing gritted his teeth. Kill me, kill him, and you won't be able to escape. Use me in exchange, and you still have a chance. There's no time for you to think. Our people are coming. Don't worry, I won't move. I just want to save the hostage. As he spoke, Zhou Yuxing suddenly took out the handcuffs and cuffed one side of the handcuffs to his left wrist. At the same time, he opened the other side of the cuff. Look carefully, I'll lock myself up. Release the hostage first. The eyes of the two thugs, including the hostage, were now nervously watching Zhou Yuxing's movements, looking at the handcuff that was about to cuff Zhou Yuxing's right wrist. Release the hostage. Zhou Yuxing suddenly roared. The two thugs tensed, nerves suddenly tightened again, and they were momentarily absent-minded. In that split second, the thug who was holding the hostage was pushed to the ground by a strong force. It came from outside the window. When Zhou Yuxing broke the fire alarm bell, he and Luo Qi directly split up. Luo Qi used the scaffolding on the outer wall of the building as a cover to crawl behind the thugs bit by bit, waiting for an opportunity. The moment he successfully threw the thug holding the hostage to the ground, Zhou Yuxing instantly rushed to the other thug like a scorpion on the hunt. Luo Qi threw himself at one, and Zhou Yuxing knocked into another. The four of them fell to the ground at the same time and started fighting with each other. After that, the thug who was pounced on by Luo Qi suddenly bulged his muscles and kicked Luo Qi more than a meter away. Stinky cop. After the thug got rid of Luo Qi, he immediately started shooting with the SMG in his hand. Seeing this, Luo Qi's face changed greatly, and he jumped out again. This time, he threw himself at the hostage security guard. With the security guard, Luo Qi suddenly rolled behind a load-bearing wall. At this time, during the fight, Zhou Yuxing successfully took back his gun from the thug who picked up his gun and shot him to break free. But facing the thug who was shooting with the SMG, Zhou Yuxing had to roll aside and hide behind the wall. Next to him was Luo Qi and the hostage security guard, and they were only 1 meter away. I'm going to kill you all. Seeing his brother lying on the ground vomiting blood, the thug's ferocity was immediately exposed. The terrible firepower directly suppressed Luo Qi and Zhou Yuxing, making them unable to move. Don't kill me, the security guard covered his head in horror and curled up. At this time, Luo Qi took a deep breath and did something that surprised Zhou Yuxing. He took off his bulletproof vest and directly put it on the security guard. Seeing this, Zhou Yuxing was stunned for a moment, but in an instant, he bit his cheek and took many deep breaths. Luo Qi seemed to have guessed what Zhou Yuxing wanted to do and quickly stopped him with his eyes. Lao Luo, you asked me if I had enough rest. Zhou Yuxing suddenly stood up. I'm telling you now, I have enough rest. Don't. Zhou Yuxing suddenly jumped out, but the thug seemed to have expected this. He grinned fiercely and quickly dodged Zhou Yuxing's sudden attack. He raised his gun and directly hit Zhou Yuxing's arm, making his gun fall to the ground. Seeing this, Luo Qi also jumped out. This time, he threw the thug to the ground and kicked away the SMG in his hand. Zhou Yuxing intended to endure the pain and subconsciously wanted to pick up his gun, but the thug was surprisingly tenacious. Now that he fell to the ground, he forcefully supported himself with his palm and kicked Zhou Yuxing's abdomen. At this moment, the three of them fell to the ground at the same time. The gun was within reach of the three of them. Like a human pyramid, Luo Qi and Zhou Yuxing suppressed the thug at the same time. In this moment of life and death, the thug's ferocity was completely unleashed. He roared, and with amazing strength, he broke free from Luo Qi and Zhou Yuxing's entanglement and snatched the gun with one hand. The two of them climbed on top of the thug and tangled with him until the end. Zhou Yuxing reached out and snatched the gun. As they rolled, the thug kept roaring. Life and death had arrived in an instant. A huge boom rang out, causing everything to come to a halt. The gun was still in the thug's hand, but it was Zhou Yuxing's hand that pulled it, and the bullet entered Luo Qi's body. Chapter 1192. Another gunshot was heard. The security guard who had put on the bulletproof vest was no longer in the room. He was so frightened that he didn't think about running away during the chaos. But the gunshot made him quickly squat on the ground. Then what happened in the room? He didn't know, but he saw people. The police officers were running crazily from the corridor. He knew he was saved. The sound of gunshots at close range could easily damage the eardrums. Why did the members of the shooting club wear noise-canceling headphones? The loud sound made Zhou Yuxing feel like he lost his hearing again. He felt like fate was playing a joke on him. He had enough rest and woke up, but the person who woke him up was going to sleep instead. Dark red liquid spread from his chest. How good would it be if he didn't take off the bulletproof vest? He seemed to have lost all his strength. But the thug still had strength, even more ferocious. The thug who fell to the ground instantly pushed the weak Zhou Yuxing away, and also pushed Luo Qi away. He was still grinning, because in this battle, he was very lucky, because the goddess of luck favored him, because he obtained the greatest benefit from this situation where there was only a slim chance of survival. Luo Qi was lying flat on the ground. His pupils hadn't dispersed yet. He just looked at the ceiling. Maybe there were too many things in his mind at this moment. Zhou Yuxing understood this kind of gaze. When the thug picked up his gun again and aimed at him, Zhou Yuxing felt his mind go blank again. You're not afraid. So what am I afraid of? How long ago? Maybe only 10 minutes ago. Ah! He shouted with tears, blood, anger, and pain. Filled with glory, depravity, and despair, when the gunman's bullet hit Zhou Yuxing's shoulder, he became even more like a beast, like a bull. Zhou Yuxing hugged the thug's waist and pushed him crazily toward the unprotected window. The thug just thought Zhou Yuxing wanted to fight with his life. But when his waist pressed against the window, he suddenly understood. Zhou Yuxing wanted to die with him. Zhou Yuxing roared. His face was red, and his eyes were bloodshot. He didn't want to live anymore. The two of them flipped over the windowsill and fell straight down. Bang! Like a clap of thunder, it cut through the darkness and split open the earth. Zhou Yuxing suddenly opened his eyes and felt his surroundings become heavy. He seemed to have heard something. Doctor, the patient is awake. However, the darkness that had just been split open was instantly restored. It was like a cage. A cage had trapped him inside. He tried to call out, but he couldn't make a sound. After a very, very long time, he once again heard a voice calling out to him. He opened his eyes once more. A gust of wind, carrying the fragrance of flowers, drifted over. Zhou Yuxing saw a nurse bending over the blood pressure monitor. You're finally awake. That's great, the nurse said with a smile. Zhou Yuxing only felt a moment of confusion. He subconsciously wanted to get up, so he exerted force with both hands, but in an instant, a tearing pain made him unable to get up. Don't move. The nurse hurriedly supported him. You were shot in the shoulder, and the wound hasn't healed yet. If you move, the wound will open up again. Zhou Yuxing nodded subconsciously. He only felt an unbearable pain in his head and a feeling of something being tightly wrapped around his head. It was the bandage wrapped around his forehead. The nurse said that when he fell from a high place, not only did he hit his head, but there were also fractures in many parts of his body. He didn't die, but he really managed to survive. Later, Gawain came. After receiving the notice, he immediately came to visit. Only then did Zhou Yuxing find out that he had been in a coma for 2 weeks. Gawain sat by the window, slowly peeling an apple with a knife. At the same time, he looked at Zhou Yuxing and didn't say a word for a long time. Zhou Yuxing seemed to be thinking about something. Seeing Gawain looking at him without moving, he frowned subconsciously. Captain Gawain, is there something on my face? You really can't remember? Gawain suddenly asked. Zhou Yuxing shook his head and pinched his forehead at the same time. I really can't remember what happened. I just remember. He tried his best to recall the incident, and his eyes were in a daze. I remember. At that time, Captain Luo took off his bulletproof vest. Then I rushed out, and then he rushed out too. I really can't remember what happened after that. What happened after that? What about Captain Luo? Is he okay? Luo Qi was buried a few days ago, Gawain said softly. Zhou Yuxing fell silent. For a long time, Gawain didn't say a word. Then the phone rang. It was from the station. Gawain stood up and patted Zhou Yuxing's shoulder. The doctor said that your head was hit, and it might affect your memory, but it's okay. You should recover soon. Take this time to recuperate well. By the way, the hostage you saved a few days ago sent a silk banner. I accepted it for you and put on your table. Zhou Yuxing didn't say anything, but he was a little reluctant. For some reason, his mood was unusually low. Gawain said again, you did well this time. Although you lost your gun, it should have been lost when you fell while fighting with the criminals. We found it now. It's not a blemish. Take good care of yourself. We'll wait for you to return to the team. Zhou Yuxing nodded. After that, he couldn't sleep. He couldn't sleep. He hadn't had a good night's sleep in the past few years. He was afraid that if he fell asleep, he wouldn't be able to wake up, so he continued to rest. In the living room, waves of black gas slowly emanated from Luochio's body. He sat on the sofa with his hands on his legs. His sitting posture was straight, and he sat like this for the entire night until the sun rose. More and more black smoke appeared, as if it was a thick ink, but in the end, he still slowly opened his eyes. The black gas, which was as dense as ink, began to shrink and gather in his palm. Finally, it condensed into a bead. The next moment, the bead shattered in Luochio's palm and finally disappeared. He let out a long sigh. Looking at the sleeping Zhou Yuxing, Luochio didn't move for a long time. After a long time, when the slightly bright sky attracted a touch of crimson color, Luochio stood up, picked up the blanket on the sofa, and gently covered Zhou Yuxing with it. You've already died once. There's no point in dying again. Luochio reached into Zhou Yuxing's pocket and took out a bottle, which slowly disappeared. Gawain had an uncontrollable feeling. It was like a sudden impulse, like some kind of call. Something seemed to be leading him to the cemetery again. He had clearly been here the day before. When he arrived, he saw a young man in front of the tombstone, concentrating on cleaning the grave. Gawain's eyes immediately narrowed. He subconsciously thought that he was once again seeing the hallucination that had troubled him for the past few days. Gawain remained silent as he watched the young man clean the originally clean grave bit by bit. After a while, the young man put down the things he was cleaning. Then, he lit the incense and stuck it in front of the tombstone. Suddenly, the young man handed Gawain a few sticks of incense. Gawain couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't say anything and subconsciously took it. Then he lit the incense and stuck it in the incense burner. Maintaining silence in front of the grave was the greatest respect for the dead. For a long time, Luochio and Gawain quietly looked at the tombstone like this. Thank you for often coming here to visit my father when I didn't know. This was the first sentence Luochio said. Gawain still couldn't tell if this young man was real or not. This young man, who had once discussed problems with him in class, was still the same as when he first met him. That feeling lingered in his heart. He didn't see a trace of Loki in this young man. Are you real? Gawain asked hesitantly. Do you want to be fake? Luochio asked calmly. Gawain shook his head and frowned. He knew that if all this was real, Luochio couldn't have kept appearing these past few days and appearing so strangely. But if it was fake, how did he know? Then you. Luochio took out a bottle from his pocket and handed it to Gawain. Gawain subconsciously took it. Risperidone. Luochio said softly. Don't give this medicine to Zhou Yuxing anymore. You know? Finally, Gawain's expression changed slightly. It's not important. Luochio shook his head. Gawain took a deep breath. His elegant expression instantly turned fierce. He took a step forward and grabbed Luochio's collar. His eyes widened. You say it's not important? Don't you know how your father died? He was shot to death by Zhou Yuxing. You say it's not important? Luochio said calmly. So you faked the test results, right? Gawain said sternly. I had no choice. Luo Qi was perfect, completely and utterly perfect. I won't allow him to die like this. Even if he died in the line of duty, he should have died heroically, not in such a ridiculous way. Luochio didn't let Gawain let go. He just looked at Gawain's messy eyes quietly. And then? You made Zhou Yuxing become like this to make Loki perfect? This is a continuation. Gawain roared. It's Loki's continuation. Zhou Yuxing's life belongs to Loki. I want him to be tortured day and night. He took away my only friend. Unforgivable, unforgivable. I've worked so hard all this time, but no one has ever looked me in the eye. No matter how hard I work, I'll always be the son-in-law of Gawain. My promotion is because I used the back door. I know what these people say about me behind my back. Only Loki, only your father, only he truly understands me and never looks down on me. Only he can walk into my heart, understand me, encourage me, and support me. He's my only friend. He's perfect. There can't be a stain on him. Absolutely not. Zhou Yuxing is trash. A bastard. He's always been jealous that I stole his position. He's lazy and useless. So what if he's made contributions in the past? That's the past. A person who has no fighting spirit and only knows how to resent others for stealing his position. What right does he have to stay? What right does he have to live? Amnesia? What a joke. He's the one who doesn't want to remember. If I hadn't accidentally seen old man Ouyang's test results, this truth would have been hidden forever. It must be Zhou Yuxing's doing. It must be him. He thinks I don't know? Impossible. Gawain was furious. He even has the face to come to me and ask me to give him counseling? That's even more impossible. Isn't he jealous that I took his position? Doesn't he want to be forgiven? Fine. Fine, I'll give it to him. I'll give him my position and let him be the team leader. Every time I give him counseling, I'll hypnotize him. He wants to remember? No way. I'll make sure he doesn't know anything, but can feel everything. That's the best punishment for him. He'll use his entire life to pay for his sins. I'll keep watching, keep watching. Luochio looked at the agitated middle-aged man. He placed his hand on Gawain's wrist that was grabbing his collar and slowly removed it. My father can't be perfect, Luochio said faintly. He's only perfect when he's my father. He makes mistakes at work and loses his temper in life. Also, my father may be able to be everyone's friend, but that doesn't mean everyone can be his friend. His friends never have the heart to harm others. Gawain's body trembled and his hands fell to his sides in dejection. He looked at Luochio dejectedly. You forgive him? My father, he will forgive him. Luochio looked at Gawain and said faintly, If I don't forgive him, maybe my father will suddenly jump up and beat me up. Gawain was stunned and didn't say anything. He just turned to look at Luo Qi's tombstone. Can I still come here? My father likes his friends very much. If you want to be his friend, you're welcome to come anytime. Also, thank you for preserving my father's reputation. Luochio was already far away. Gawain sighed deeply. Then, he suddenly threw the bottle and his hand away and left dejectedly. In front of the altar on the third floor of the basement, Luo Qi, who had been here many times, sat beside the altar and leaned against it. The altar gave him a colder feeling than before, as though it had turned into a cold machine. He looked at the words floating in front of him. Resurrect Luo Qi. Luochio's memories of Luo Qi must be erased. At the same time, all memories of Luochio must be erased. All emotions of the executor must be erased. If you want to inherit a tool, you must bear its weight. The executor does not need any extra emotions. Chapter 1193. Luochio didn't think about it anymore and carefully hid his thoughts in his heart. He felt that the altar at this time seemed to be missing something, and it was too rigid. He didn't know if the previous boss could do the same thing as the previous boss. But subconsciously, he felt that maybe the current altar was the one that the previous boss encountered. There was no basis for this feeling, it was just a feeling. Leaving the most fragile thing here for the time being, Luaccio sorted out his thoughts and opened the door to the third floor of the basement. He didn't feel very relaxed, but it didn't seem to be heavy either. He just returned to normal. When he came back, Luaccio didn't see Taisetsu. Yuyi said that she had chosen a place to live in Britain. It was a nice manor, but it was a bit deserted. So she arranged for Taisetsu to go there and clean the manor first. Nero also came with him. This was tantamount to saving Miss Nero from the horrible hell of copying books. Out of the 270,000 times of punishment, Miss Nero had not copied 3,000 times so far. The maid's code was really too long. Although the quill pen used for copying would not be worn out, Miss Nero would still use it until her hand cramped. So she happily accepted this task. She was so happy that she didn't calm down before leaving. If it weren't for Miss Maid beside her, she probably would have asked for trouble and discussed with the boss whether she could be his mistress. The shop quieted down at once. Luaccio had taken back those evil soul seals that he traded from the rich woman Su Zijuan during the Mount Tai incident. He also sacrificed some of them. The life that was originally under the red line had already been restored, and it even far exceeded the standard before his trip to South America. It could be said that there was no pressure at all. Luaccio was the boss who was connected to the altar. He didn't have any important mission waiting for him to complete, and there was no big devil waiting for him to fight. Or maybe he was already a big devil to some extent. Suddenly, Luaccio had a feeling that he was in his best condition now. Outing in front of the counter, Miss Maid, who was waiting for her master to come back from the altar space, asked in surprise. Her master was a little different during this time, but now he seemed to have recovered. It's spring. Luaccio smiled and said, "Let's go for a walk." Miss Maid absolutely obeyed her master's will, so she nodded. Since they were going on an outing, they naturally had to prepare some food. Let's make sandwiches at all costs. Boss Luo rolled up his sleeves and revealed a relaxed smile. Therefore, he called Luo Yu out of the room. The three of them went to the kitchen and made layers of sandwiches. There's no need to continue investigating. Miss Song Ying was originally full of energy today. She planned to find new clues today and confirm the identity of the murderer, even though she and her husband had the same thoughts yesterday. However, he did not expect to receive a call from his grandfather, who had returned to South America early in the morning, saying that the investigation could be terminated. Song Ying naturally had to ask why. Grandfather Song Tianyo's answer was very simple, saying that it was Luaccio's request. Although Song Tianyu was very puzzled by Luaccio's request, he had been in contact with his elder brother and grandson for a short time. However, in the eyes of Father Song, Luaccio was a more reliable person than Song Howren and Song Ying. Of course, part of the reason was because of Mr. Blind. Mr. Blind once said that Luaccio was a noble person. Father Song did not have any intention of currying favor. With the wealth and ability of the Song family today, they did not need to curry favor with anyone. Perhaps they could rely on illusory luck to make the Song family go one step further, but it seemed that it was just icing on the cake. It was not as practical as the loyalty of a descendant of the Song family. This was because the Song family was really too small in number. Therefore, compared to how to develop the Song family, what Father Song wanted to see more was how to make the Song family flourish. Song Howren seemed hopeless. Young people need to know moderation. As for grandfather, although I'm old, my bones are still very strong. It won't be a problem to wait a year or two. The key is to take good care of your body, understand? Song Ying felt that her grandfather seemed to have misunderstood something, but she did not know what on earth could make him misunderstand. So what on earth happened? She planned to ask Luaccio properly what had happened, but when she called, she found that the call could not be connected. Although Luaccio's phone was still there, it often could not be connected. In any case, she was a member of Luaccio's family, and she did not feel that the signal was bad, right? So angry. She did not know why, but she suddenly felt very angry. Sitting in the back seat of Alpha's car and ending the satellite call with Song Tianyu, the words "Don't provoke me" were written all over Miss Ying's face. The bodyguard next to him vaguely heard his father's weak voice from the phone, so he fixed his eyes on the street, looking like he was carefully monitoring. He would rather die than say that he had reported to his father that the young master and the young lady stayed in the car for a long time and that Miss Ying's waist was tired afterwards. "Let's go," Song Ying ordered with a displeased expression. "Where are we going?" "Shopping." Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao were still working hard to identify the people who had passed by the alley before and 2 days after the crime. The progress of the investigation in these 2 days was not bad. They had checked 32 people who had more than 50 breaths, but it was a pity that they were all unrelated people. The investigation was still in progress. Sir Ma's investigation was also in progress. Because of the order from the top, all the members of the first and second team were now focusing on the dismembered corpse case. Because of the discovery of Wu Rong's murder case and the combination of the two cases, the workload naturally increased a lot, but the attention of the society decreased. Should they exclaim that this was an era of entertainment to death? Or should they feel sad that this was an era of entertainment to death? However, those who were supposed to work overtime still had to work overtime. The entire team had been working nonstop for almost a week now. The one thing that made more progress was that they had finally used a new technology to determine the exact time of death for Wang Liang and Wu Rong. This was all thanks to the help of the new forensic doctor. The investigation of Wang Liang and Wu Rong's WeChat moments had been completed, but the result of the investigation made the case even more confusing. The time of death of Wang Liang and Wu Rong was before the Chinese New Year, which was less than 2 weeks apart. According to the data obtained from the internet company, the places where they logged in on their WeChat moments were all different. That was to say, the dynamic photos were not randomly found or photoshopped, but were actually taken in different places. Compare with the time and place of Wang Liang and Wu Rong. Most of the time, they were in other places. During this period, the most suspicious person, Zhao Lu, was in the city. How could one person be in 2 places? Under such circumstances, although Sir Ma and Zhou Yuxing were helpless, they could only temporarily withdraw the people who were monitoring Zhao Lu. Zhao Lu was actually under surveillance all the time, but it was done secretly. The people who were responsible for following Zhao Lu were Lin Feng and his companion, Xiao Wang. "Got it, Ma." In the rehabilitation center, Officer Lin turned off the phone and then twisted his stiff neck. Her colleague, Little Wang, asked about the situation. Lin Feng told him the truth, while Xiao Wang stretched and seemed to be relieved. These days, they had been investigating Zhao Lu. The deeper the investigation, the more they could understand a person. During these days of following Zhao Lu, they found that this young man was really a person of good character. His academic performance was excellent, and he didn't rely on unorthodox means to get a scholarship from a school. His reputation in the neighborhood was completely that of a good child. Even the security guard downstairs was full of praise when talking about him. Perhaps it could be said that Zhao Lu paid a lot of attention to his own reputation. After all, there were such situations. The more scheming a person was, the more perfect his performance and the better his concealment. However, they had been following Zhao Lu these days, watching him take his sister, Zhang Xiaoqin, in and out of the rehabilitation center. Seeing his care for his sister, that kind of heartfelt affection, Xiao Wang couldn't help but feel a little sad. Only when the investigation was dropped did the two of them feel a sense of relief. Who would want to see this suffering family get worse? Or watch it get a little bit better and then be mercilessly snuffed out? "Do you have money?" Just when they were about to go back, Officer Lin suddenly looked at Xiao Wang and asked. Xiao Wang was stunned, then took out his wallet and glanced at it. There were only 3 grandpa notes and a dozen change left in it. He wanted to ask what Lin Feng wanted to do, but unexpectedly, Officer Lin didn't know whether it was because he had been following Sir Ma for a long time, so he had learned to be thick-skinned. Unexpectedly, Officer Lin grabbed it without saying anything, counted out 3 grandpa notes, and then stuffed the rest of the change back. Then, under Xiao Wang's stunned gaze, Lin Feng stood up and directly walked into the rehabilitation room. Xiao Wang guessed what Lin Feng wanted to do, but he was very sad and angry. Zhao Lu wasn't here. He had to go to school during the day, so he only took time to visit at noon. Now was the time when Zhao Lu came to visit, but he wasn't here now. He was washing the towel, preparing to wipe the sweat for Zhang Xiaoqin. In the room, Zhang Xiaoqin attached to the shelf little by little, slowly moving. But maybe she was too hard on herself, so now her forehead was full of sweat. Or maybe because she was too tired, Zhang Xiaoqin didn't hold firmly and was about to fall down. At this time, someone suddenly grabbed her arm and stabilized her body. So fortunately, she didn't fall down. Zhang Xiaoqin thought that she was lucky. She wanted to say some words of thanks, but when she looked up and saw Lin Feng, who had come to her door that day, she couldn't bring herself to smile. "Take a rest first," Lin Feng said in a low voice. "I'll help you." Zhang Xiaoqin didn't say anything and nodded. Then, with the help of Lin Feng, she slowly walked to the resting place and sat down. Then she looked at Lin Feng in confusion. Lin Feng quickly said, "Don't get me wrong, I'm not here for you. I just came here to visit the patient, but I didn't expect to meet you, Miss Zhang." Zhang Xiaoqin nodded dubiously. Lin Feng took a deep breath, then took out the grandpa notes he snatched, put 2 on himself, and directly put them in Zhang Xiaoqin's hand. "This is? Buy some tonics." Lin Feng smiled and said, "Live a good life. When the time comes, it will naturally be better." But Zhang Xiaoqin wanted to say something, but Lin Feng had already hurriedly said goodbye and walked out of the room. She held hundreds of yuan in her hand, looking at Lin Feng's disappearing back, finally shaking her head. "Sister." Zhao Lu came back with a towel, wiped Zhang Xiaoqin's face, and then asked curiously, "Did someone come here just now?" He saw the cash in Zhang Xiaoqin's hand and couldn't help but frown. Zhang Xiaoqin asked Zhao Lu to sit down, smiled, and said, "I happened to meet a friend and chatted for a while." "Who?" Zhao Lu smiled. "You should thank him. He's a kind-hearted person." Zhang Xiaoqin said, "You don't know him, my former colleague. I haven't contacted him for a long time. I didn't expect to meet him here." Zhao Lu replied, and then looked out of the window in confusion. Seeing the 2 figures leaving, he frowned. He turned back and smiled, then squatted down, looking at Zhang Xiaoqin, and said softly, "Let me give you a massage." Zhao Lu, who squatted down, carefully massaged Zhang Xiaoqin's calf, while Zhang Xiaoqin stretched out her hands, gently pinching Zhao Li's shoulders. Zhang Xiaoqin smiled and said, "Look at your shoulders. Don't read for too long. No one in our family is nearsighted. Only you." Zhao Li gave a simple and honest smile. The doctor said Zhang Xiaoqin's recovery was very good. When summer came, she should be able to walk naturally. Perhaps it was inconvenient for her to run, but it wouldn't affect her daily life. "I'm not tired." Zhao Lu was full of joy. "If I don't work hard, how can my life get better?" "Sister, I have to fight for a good life." "Fool." Zhang Xiaoqin reached out and poked Zhao Li's forehead, then rubbed it with her palm, and said softly, "All right, let's go to class, or we'll be late. I'll massage you for another 5 minutes." Zhao Lu lowered his head again and carefully rubbed the acupoints on Zhang Xiaoqin's calf. Zhao Lu had been studying the massage technique for a long time over the past few days, so he was naturally familiar with it. Zhang Xiaoqin recalled Lin Feng's words. When it was time for her to get better, she would naturally get better. So, she was probably getting better now, right? She looked at the 500 yuan beside her and smiled knowingly. In the afternoon, the students didn't see lecturer Gao 1. The substitute teacher was still the deputy dean. "Your teacher Gao took a few days off, so I'll be the substitute teacher for all of you these few days. Don't ask anymore." There was a series of whispers in the classroom. Chun Mingming didn't listen. Sitting in the back row, he picked up the book he had planned to finish and began reading it carefully. In fact, he didn't need to come to school anymore, but he was used to finishing everything, so he came. However, the deputy dean's microphone on the podium was a little too loud, so Chun Mingming simply put on his headphones, and his entire world was filled with the sound of musical notes. Chapter 1194. The true dragon of the divine land, who had regained her power, naturally would not take trains like the Harmony system to the north in Shanjing City. She did not even want to take a plane because she felt that it was more practical to take a plane. But she was still a Shinryu, so she couldn't be too slow. After entering the capital, Long Shual walked into the base of the administration's headquarters with ease. She had the title of one of the top advisors here, and she even had a special office. But over the years, the number of times this office was opened could be counted on one hand. The last time she opened it was more than 10 years ago. The headquarters of the administration had been under construction since the establishment of XIN. Over the years, it had been expanding. Others didn't know, but the staff of the administration who worked here were very clear about how huge the headquarters built under the Capitol was and how incredible the technology was. The combination of Taoism and science allowed this place to even resist a nuclear explosion when it was fully operational. During the period of Mount Tai's spiritual energy explosion, after receiving the news, a group of core senior officials of XIN were gathered here. But Long Shual wasn't interested in seeing the changes in the headquarters over the past 10 years, and she wasn't interested in the new technologies that were constantly displayed here. She wanted to capture this place, no matter how strong it was. As long as it wasn't as strong as the Penglai treasury, it was only a matter of minutes and hours. As long as she stepped on the ground, she was almost invincible. The so-called immortals could also be killed. This is the baby with the ability to be born. In the room, through the special glass mirror, Long Shual looked at the other side of the room. At this time, the newborns were placed in several incubators, and she frowned subconsciously. Not to mention the supreme identity of Kelowna Shinryu. Just the title of the top advisor of the administration was enough to accompany Long Shual. No matter how low the position was, it couldn't be lower than the second-level management staff. In fact, the several people accompanying her were the deputy director of the administration, the 4 national scholars led by Fire Cloud Evil God, and the head of the research and development department, Dr. Zhao. As for why only the deputy director appeared instead of the director, it was naturally because the administration was a special institution. No one was appointed to command it, but it was directly subordinate to the supreme leader of XIN. The deputy director was the highest position in the authority. In a few incubators, a newborn's body was floating in the air. It was sucking its fingers and sleeping. Although the degree of floating was very weak, about a few centimeters high, Long Shual's eyesight was good enough to see this distance clearly. She could feel that this was not a Taoist magic, or a high-tech gravity-free device, but a strange power that originated from the newborn's body. The baby next to the levitating baby was like a light bulb, emitting a light similar to a tungsten lamp. Of course, it was just a kind of light and did not have any offensive power. As for the other two, they both displayed different abilities. However, these abilities did not seem to be of much use right now, so they could only be considered as minor abilities. Dr. Zhao temporarily called this mutation a brand new evolution of human beings after the spirit energy explosion. He even called these newborns the tinder of new human beings. He speculated that in the future, there would be more similar newborns. As for whether there would be adults with abilities in the future, it was unknown. Long Shual didn't speak. She was just thinking about something. She was actually thinking about Mo Xiaofei. Mo Xiaofei had a powerful brain development. To put it bluntly, it was a psychic power evolved from a mutated spiritual power. It could be said that it was an acquired ability. There were also the other 3 national scholars besides Fire Cloud, Evil God. The 3 national scholars were also people who could use powerful abilities, but this was actually the result of XIN's decades of research. But these newborns were different. Their weak abilities were more like innate abilities and had nothing to do with the degree of development of their own brains. Besides, these newborns were only a few days old. How could they have developed their brains? What are your plans? Long Shual looked directly at the deputy director and asked. Fire Cloud, Evil God didn't count. Although this guy was also one of the top consultants and personally trained many agents of the administration, he was still a senior employee who volunteered to be a hired thug for the administration. The ones who really made the decisions were these senior civil servants. The deputy director's name was Kwang Zhengwo, which was a name that matched the style of naming in his era. He was around 50 years old. In the XIN Tai system, he was considered a relatively young type. Kwang Zhengwo said seriously, At present, we can only collect these newborns. After all, if they are allowed to grow up in society, it is impossible to estimate the impact it will cause. But considering that if similar situations increase in the future, even we have no way to suppress it, we have to prepare for the worst. Long Shirua frowned. Special bill, Kwang Jangwo said with his chest out. This is only the first step to adapt to the worst-case scenario in the future. If there are more and more newborns with abilities, I'm afraid we will have to consider announcing the existence of transcendence. If that's the case, I suggest you move faster. Long Shirua suddenly said. What do you mean? This made Kwang Jangwo a bit surprised. He originally thought that with Long Shirua's past style, she would likely become an obstacle to the implementation of this bill. So before the bill was passed, she was not notified. After all, if it was Shinryu's tough attitude, the chances of this bill not being passed were relatively high. Humans were strong, but no matter how strong they were still helpless against Kelowna and Shinryu. Long Shirua looked at Fire Cloud, Evil God, indifferently and sneered. What? This old man didn't tell you. Fire Cloud, Evil God frowned and cupped his hands. Master Long Jun, what do you mean? Long Shirua said, You only see the abilities of these newborns, but you can't see their physiques? These children are full of spiritual energy. Their muscles and bones are clear. If they were placed in the ancient times when spiritual energy had not dried up, they would be the best of the best in cultivation. Do you understand what I'm saying? Fire Cloud, Evil God pondered for a moment, then said solemnly, You mean Taoism will snatch them? Long Shirua shook her head. They won't go so far as to snatch them, but they will still fight for them. I don't need to say that Taoism's talents are declining, and you know it very well. In the end, it's indeed because of the spiritual energy. The thin spiritual energy greatly reduces the chances of producing talents with high aptitudes. In the past 100 years, most Taoism's disciples have even shown negative growth. Now, if a large number of children with high aptitudes are born in the world for the sake of inheritance, do you think Taoism's people won't fight for it? This Fire Cloud, Evil God, fell silent. He naturally knew what it meant if he did, as the true dragon said. Taoism's decline was not something that happened in a day or two, but now that the spiritual energy was restored, Taoism welcomed a new life. It may not be seen in a short time, but after a few decades, Taoism will probably be revived again. This is just Taoism. It doesn't take into account the situation of the major demon clans. Perhaps the demon clan is another uncontrollable situation. If the new generation joins Taoism, they will be taken in as disciples from a young age. From the beginning, they will be cut off from the world, and when they grow up, they will only be loyal to their own sect. This is completely different from the selection of students sent to the major sects and demon clans by the Administrative Bureau over the years. The latter is controllable, but the former is completely uncontrollable. What does Consultant Long mean? Kwang Jangwo heard the meaning behind this and asked carefully at this time. I don't support either side, Long Shirua directly said, but if anyone makes trouble in the world, hurts the innocent, and destroys the mountains and rivers, I will beat him until he can't take care of himself. Since the spiritual energy has been restored, the destiny of the three parties will be in a confrontation in the future. After Mount Tai, the destiny of the people will change. Whether or not the people will be able to dominate the world will depend on your own efforts. I won't interfere. My fist will only hit the outside. There's still the dregs inside. Kwang Jangwo hurriedly said, Consultant Long, don't worry. After this, we have eliminated some of the change guys in the team. Over the years, everyone has been more comfortable, and the R&D department has been producing new results. Some people in our team can't see clearly. They are arrogant and separated from the people. Long Shirua waved her hand and said, Don't say these things to me. Huaxia has thousands of years of history, and I can recite it backwards. Do you think I don't know what kind of virtue you have? Kwang Jangwo could only remain silent awkwardly. In the Mount Tai incident, some powerful guys had secretly abused the power of the Administrative Bureau to capture demons, develop them in secret, and conduct experiments. This had caused many powerful demons to be resentful and participate in the tragedy of Mount Tai. It was indeed one of the fuses that led to this disaster. It was just that Xin still pursued a strategy of stability. Bold and decisive actions would only lead to greater shocks. But such a low-key handling obviously made the Shinryu Kelowna very dissatisfied. Lord Dragon King, is the fate of the people really about to change? Firecloud, evil god, was secretly surprised. This time's spiritual energy explosion completely twisted the fate of the people and demons into a ball. Even I can't distinguish it at the moment. Long Shirua nodded. In fact, it still depended on strength. Firecloud was the successor of the Tiger Soulblade. Sooner or later, he would still have a predestined battle with the Xinyuan Palace. Within Kelowna, not including her, Firecloud Evil God could be considered as one of the few peak existences. Because of this, Firecloud Evil God was the biggest reliance of the Administrative Bureau. As for that damn profiteer, Longshore didn't even count him in. After so many interactions, Kelowna Shinryu really understood this damn profiteer's pettiness. Other than flirting with girls, he didn't care about the suffering of the human world at all. Damn profiteer. Right now, I don't know which girl he has taken a fancy to and is desperately flirting with. So infuriating. On this side, Shinryu Lord's face suddenly became ugly. The people next to him looked at him and felt a chill in their hearts. They didn't know if the Shinryu was still unhappy with the Administrative Bureau for acting first and reporting later. Firecloud, Evil God, could only secretly give State Scholar Bihua a wink. After all, in terms of gender, they were relatively similar, so it would be easier to talk to them. State Scholar Bihua, who was known as Godmother, also understood at this moment. She came forward and said with a smile, "Well, the newborn's condition has been checked. Why don't we sit down and have a good chat? Lord Long, I have a few cans of good tea here. Why don't we sit down and drink?" Hee. Long Shua chuckled and directly waved her hand. "I don't have time. I still have things to do." Kwang Jingwo hurriedly said, "Consultant Long, if I can help." Long Shua rolled her eyes and said, "I'm going to seal the whole Kelowna area. Do you want to come with me?" Seal the Kelowna area? Firecloud, Evil God, was stunned, but in the blink of an eye, he seemed to have thought of something. Longshaw said angrily, "I just remembered. So much spiritual energy was spurted out. If I don't seal it in Kelowna area, the barbarians outside will have a free meal." This seemed to be the reason, but why did he feel that her tone was not right? Several students walked out of the office dejectedly. Obviously, they had just been scolded. They even had to write a self-reflection and record demerits. The reason was bullying a classmate caused a bad influence. Damn, it must be Zhao Lu who made the report. One of the students looked unhappy at this moment. The tall boy who was once interrupted by Zhao Lu leaned against the wall and lit up a cigarette. His companion looked at him. "Young Master Feng, how about we teach Zhao Lu a lesson? That coward doesn't have the guts to make the report." Young Master Feng looked very calm. "It's someone else who did it." "Who is it?" "He must have eaten a leopard's guts." Young Master Feng sneered. He looked at Zhao Lu and felt that Zhao Lu was a coward, but he looked at his two companions as if they were two idiots. However, idiots also had their advantages. That was, they were obedient. Of course, the more obvious reason was that they were rich. "Can't you use your pig brain to think?" Young Master Feng poked his forehead. "It's already posted on the school forum. How can these teachers not see it? So we're just going to let it go?" Young Master Feng sneered. "I said, I'll teach this guy a lesson every time I see him. I've been chasing that girl for 2 months and almost got her. This is great. This woman has been avoiding me for the past few days. But Chen Mingming seems to be protecting this guy." The other person frowned and said, "But I heard that Chen Mingming is going to drop out and emigrate. Why don't we wait a little longer? Zhao Lu is useless without a backer." It was not that he was used to bullying others, but that most of the students in this university were too outstanding. There were a lot of students with good family backgrounds. Students from ordinary families like Zhao Lu were more rare. "No hurry." Young Master Feng sneered. "We're good students in this university. How can we bully our classmates?" Young Master Feng reached out to fix his companion's collar and patted him. Now you know what to do. Chapter 1195. The location of a University of Political Science and Law was not the only high school. There were many other schools nearby, such as comprehensive universities, music schools, and medical schools. This was a major urban planning in the past 10 years. Let's call it the university town. However, in order to save space, a superstandard library was built in the middle of many schools. Students from nearby schools could borrow books here with their student ID. Of course, the library was almost full. If you wanted to find a good spot, you had to come early. Otherwise, you could only choose the lawn outside the library or the artificial lake. Chun Mingming came here today to return books. The person in charge of registering Chun Mingming was a female student who worked part-time. She was not a student of the University of Political Science and Law, but a comprehensive university nearby. The temporary administrator was called Tara, and she came from the grassland in the north. Tara in Mongolian meant the wilderness. The girl's skin was not rough like those who grew up in a sandstorm. Instead, she had the delicate skin of a Jiangnan girl. She had bright eyes and white teeth. She must have lived in the south for some time. Generous and warm. You're here again. Tara smiled as she watched Chun Mingming take out a few books that were not due yet. You're so fast this time. Uh-huh. Chun Mingming nodded and did not say much. He often came to the library to borrow books. Gradually, his impression of Tara deepened. Perhaps it was because the girl had a grassland vibe. You're not borrowing books this time? Tara was handling the returned books. She seemed to be relatively free now, so she planned to chat. No. Chun Mingming shook his head. I don't think I'll have a chance to come here again. Tara stopped what she was doing and showed a puzzled look. Her lips moved slightly as if she wanted to say something. Are you done with the registration? Chun Mingming asked in a low voice. Oh, yes, it's done. Tara nodded. Chun Mingming nodded politely and turned to leave. For some reason, Tara suddenly had an impulse. After Chun Mingming walked a few meters away, she walked around the counter and quickly walked up. What's up? Chun Mingming looked at Tara in surprise. Can I treat you to a meal? Tara smiled and did not hide the expectation and enthusiasm in her eyes. Chun Mingming thought for a moment and then nodded. Class ended early, and there was no second class in the afternoon. Zhao Lu looked at the time. If he could catch the bus at this time, he would be able to reach the rehabilitation center before the rush hour. Therefore, after packing up his books and tools, Zhao Lu lowered his head and left quickly. In fact, in addition to picking up Zhao Xiaoqin from the rehabilitation center, Zhao Lu also planned to go to the nearby shopping mall. He had taken a fancy to a dress and planned to give it to his sister as a birthday present. In front of the school gate, Zhao had just taken out his bus card when he suddenly felt someone put their hand on his shoulder. It wasn't one person, but two people at the same time. Zhao Li's expression changed slightly. It was young Master Feng, Dong Xiaofeng, and the other two. What do you want to do? Zhao Li's expression tensed up. Zhao Li, do you have time? Dong Xiaofeng walked up to Zhao Li from behind. With his hands in his pockets, he smiled and said, We want to talk to you. I don't have time. Zhao Li shook his head. If you have anything to say it here. Dong Xiaofeng walked forward and patted the hands of his two teammates on Zhao Li's shoulder. Be polite. Zhao Li is our classmate. His teammate shrugged and then let go of Zhao. Zhao Li didn't understand Dong Xiaofeng's intention, but this was the school gate. There were many students coming in and out, so they wouldn't dare to mess around. I want to treat you to a meal. Dong Xiaofeng said seriously. Student Zhao Li, please accept my invitation. Because I want to apologize for what we did to you before. Apologize? Zhao Li was startled. Then he frowned and shook his head. No, as long as you don't harass me. We won't interfere in each other's business. Last time in the equipment room was an accident. I didn't do it on purpose, I'm sorry. He just wanted to keep the peace and live his life in the future. He would continue to study, continue to get good grades, then graduate and find a job to make his life better, so that the smile on his sister's face would stay for a longer time. Zhao Li, I sincerely want to apologize to you. Dong Xiaofeng put his hands on Zhao Li's shoulders. If you accept my invitation, then I can only go to your house to apologize. Zhao Li frowned immediately. He didn't want to let people disturb his life, especially the family that had become peaceful. He really didn't want to welcome people like Dong Xiaofeng. Dong Xiaofeng sighed. It's actually like this. The school already knows what we did to you, and they severely criticized us. Even our parents found out, and they scolded us as well. My dad told me that I must apologize to you properly, or I'll be in trouble. You see, I also want to enjoy the school life, and don't want to cause so much trouble. It's just that my old man wants me to do this. He ordered a table full of dishes and insisted that I bring you there personally so that I can apologize to you. I have no choice. You can't really expect me to apologize to you personally, right? I'm begging you, please do me a favor. With that, Dong Xiaofeng took out a wad of cash from his wallet, at least 2,000 or 3,000, and then put it in Zhao Li's hand. Help! I don't want this money. Zhao Li shook his head. Just a meal, right? I told you. Zhao Li is really a good classmate. Dong Xiaofeng sighed and smiled. It's just a meal. It won't take long. Don't worry. I promise I won't trouble you after this. I hope so. Zhao Li nodded. He didn't want to continue to be entangled with Dong Xiaofeng. If it could be solved, it would be the best. Shihai Restaurant was a restaurant in the campus where students often went to eat. It mainly served Chinese food, but also provided accommodation. But the taste of the dishes here was unanimously praised. Tara took the initiative to find a seat near the window. She enthusiastically sat down and began to order dishes. Did I order too much? It's okay, just order. Chun Mingming smiled. It's my treat. No, I said it's my treat. Tara shook her head. She put her hands on the table and leaned forward. Don't underestimate me. I can still afford this meal. Chun Mingming nodded and directly accepted the girl's confidence. Why do you want to treat me? He preferred to be more clear about the meaning behind everything. Because I like you. Tara looked at Chun Mingming. Her bright eyes were like stars. Chun Mingming was quite surprised. Although he had interacted with this girl many times, most of the time, it was about borrowing books and returning books, and occasionally a few words of idle chatter. They didn't even exchange contact information. Chun Mingming didn't continue to ask why. After a moment of silence, he directly said, Next week, I'm going to emigrate. The girl's bright eyes were suddenly surprised and then confused. She opened her mouth and then laughed. Her eyes began to flicker. She subconsciously looked out of the window and then looked at Chun Mingming. She said with relief, It's okay. If you don't like me, I won't be hurt. You can just say it. Chun Mingming didn't say anything. He just calmly looked at the girl and watched her gradually panic. Are you serious? Tara finally realized that this boy who often came to the library to borrow books was not a person who was good at joking. Next Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the evening. Chun Mingming once again gave an accurate time. Tara heaved a sigh of relief and leaned back in her chair. She didn't say anything else. Later, the waiter served all the dishes. Tara didn't eat, but Chun Mingming minded his own business and ate. You won't be able to find a girlfriend like this. Tara suddenly spat out in a fit of anger. Aren't you eating? The food won't taste good when it's cold. I'm not eating. I'm not in the mood. Tara glared. You'll be punished if you ruin a girl's friendship like this. Tungri will definitely punish you. Chun Mingming said, This is China. It's not under Tungri Heaven's jurisdiction. Tara shook her head and muttered, Why would I like you? Chun Mingming asked curiously, Why do you like me? Tara shrugged. The girl was straightforward. Actually, I don't really like you. I just like you more than others, so I want to try. Try? Tara came closer and said mysteriously, If I say that I'm actually a monster and I want to experience the feeling of human love, would you believe me? Chun Mingming smiled and gracefully picked a piece of meat for Tara with the chopsticks. He put it in her bowl and said slowly, Do monsters like people who don't understand romance? Tara said indifferently, Monsters like to look at faces. Chun Mingming smiled. This monster was really honest. However, in ancient novels, it was really a combination of a beautiful demon and a handsome lover. Tara said, Actually, I've noticed you since the first time you entered the library. Chun Mingming almost opened his mouth. Tara leaned on the table and rested her chin on her hand. She looked at Chun Mingming's face. When I first saw you, you seemed to be looking for someone. However, it's not strange to look for someone in the library. Most of the boys come in to peek at girls. I didn't pay much attention at that time. However, I didn't expect that you weren't peeking at girls, but boys. I was a little curious. Chen Mingming frowned. Tara said to herself, of course, it's mainly because of your face. After all, your face is quite good, and I often see it, so I paid more attention to it. Well, I found that you were peeking at a man every time, and it was the same man. Later, you even borrowed the books he had read. Every time you returned a book, you would go back and borrow it. Chen Mingming didn't say anything. He just looked out the window. Outside the window, several boys were walking in. They were Zhao Lu, Dong Xiaofeng, and the others. He just felt a little strange and ignored them. He looked at Tara, and then Tara moved closer again and asked curiously, why don't you tell me honestly, do you like men? If so, I'll feel much better than knowing that you're going abroad. Really, I just feel that he's a very special person. Chen Mingming shook his head. I feel that when I see him, I see myself. See yourself? Tara blinked. Chen Mingming shook his head. It's an indescribable feeling. The first time I saw him, it was in the corridor by the river. He was alone, quietly sitting on a chair, looking at the scenery without moving. I always felt that he would bring you into a completely silent world. Loneliness black and white. Nothing. Actually, I feel that way too. Tara whispered. Chen Mingming looked at her curiously. Tara said, after all, you often peek at him. I was curious, so I peeked a few times. At first, I felt that he was a bookworm. But later, I don't know why, but I got the feeling you just said. Of course, it's also a high-class face. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in the mood to look at him. But this guy is too cold. I don't like it. There's nothing in his eyes, like an empty shell. As I looked at him, I felt uncomfortable and wanted to comfort him. But I haven't seen him in a long time. It's been a long time. It was indeed a long time. It seemed that he hadn't seen him since the Golden Week last year. Tara suddenly stood up and looked at Chen Mingming. Are you full? Chen Mingming looked at the girl strangely and nodded. He wasn't that hungry. Tara suddenly pulled Chen Mingming's hand. Then let's go. Go where? To find this person. Tara's eyes shined. Aren't you chasing this person? Then let's go find him. And then? There's no then. Tara pulled Chen Mingming up. We'll know when we find him. Anyway, you have nothing to do now, right? Just treat it as spending time with me before going abroad. It was like a horse without a rein, running freely on the grassland. Chen Mingming allowed Tala to pull him along as he followed her footsteps and left the Wessie Inn. The dishes were quite sumptuous. Based on the price of Wessie restaurant, the dishes on the table would cost at least 1,000. For Zhao Lu, this was a very difficult thing to spend. However, he didn't pick up his chopsticks and only frowned. Where's your father? Didn't you say he's coming? Dong Xiaofeng said casually, there's a traffic jam on the way. It'll take a while. It's okay, we can eat first. Zhao Lu looked at the time and shook his head. Then let's wait. Dong Xiaofeng asked the waiter to bring Zhao Lu a cup of Coke and then took a bottle of beer. Zhao Lu, I know you're a good student. You don't drink? This is my toast to you. I'm apologizing to you. Do me the honor? Zhao Lu had to take the Coke and drank it in front of the 3 people. After that, nothing much happened. Dong Xiaofeng and the other 2 began to play with their phones out of boredom. Zhao Lu, on the other hand, was gradually getting impatient. He didn't know if it was because of the lack of ventilation in the room, but he felt a little hot. He even felt a bit uncomfortable. Zhao Lu, are you hot? Dong Xiaofeng suddenly raised his head and asked. Zhao Lu nodded subconsciously. Dong Xiaofeng smiled, that's right. Zhao Lu was stunned. He felt dizzy, and the Dong Xiaofeng in front of him gradually blurred. Chapter 1196. I'm sorry, we can't disclose students' personal information. If you are really friends, you shouldn't have come here. Facing the staff's puzzled eyes and questions, Tala and Chen Mingming didn't say much. They just said a few words and left in a hurry. Tala said that she was looking for that person, but what she thought of was that she checked that person's registration information in the library and found this school. However, it was convenient for students to freely enter and leave different schools in the university district, so it wasn't difficult for them to find this university's teaching office. Tala boasted when she came here. I'm sorry. I didn't expect that he had dropped out. Chen Mingming shook his head and didn't say anything. This was a very strange thing. It was somewhat out of Chun Mingming's expectation of daily life. Just like the mysterious place he had been to before, it was also full of unexpected feelings. He was a person who planned everything well. He always believed that as long as things were planned well, even if there were errors, they should be controllable. Tala sat down dejectedly on the chair in the corridor of the teaching office building. She said half-jokingly and half-helplessly, "Well, you borrowed that person's book, and now you can even study abroad." Chun Mingming lowered his head, not knowing what to think. But there was no doubt that Tara was a girl full of whimsical ideas, or rather, she didn't have too many restrictions on her. She squatted in front of Chun Mingming, propping up her chin with both hands and looking up at his lowered face. Like teasing a cat, the squatting Tala stretched out her hand and wanted to poke Chun Mingming's forehead with her finger. But before she succeeded, Chun Mingming had caught her wrist. Tala smiled. "You're holding the wrong place." Her hand magically broke away from Chun Mingming's palm, and then her 5 fingers leaned forward and clasped Chun Mingming's fingers. "It should be like this." She showed a complacent expression. The delicate feeling from the girl's fingers was very clear, like jade, smooth and cold. But Chun Mingming loosened his palm after a while and said indifferently, "It's late, let's call it a day." Tala showed a pitiful expression and then immediately cheered up. "Tomorrow. How about we find him tomorrow?" "How?" Chun Mingming shook his head. Tala smiled and said, "Let's just stroll around. Maybe we'll find one." If he had already dropped out of school and went abroad to study, he wouldn't have stayed here, and they wouldn't have bumped into each other. So there were no ifs. Chun Mingming did not agree. He turned around and casually waved his hand as a rejection. Tala cupped his hands in front of his lips as he looked at Chun Mingming's back. "I'll look for you tomorrow." Chun Mingming didn't mind. If he couldn't afford the library, he wouldn't be able to touch it. Yes, this was controllable. The moment he turned around, a burning sensation made Zhao Lu gradually wake up. The moment he opened his eyes, everything around him seemed hazy. He subconsciously went to look for his glasses. He found them and placed them on the cabinet next to him. After putting on the glasses, Chun Mingming looked around in confusion. There was no doubt that this was a hotel room, and the decoration was very exquisite. The price for a night's stay should not be low, but this was not what he was concerned about. What he cared about was why he was here. When he fell asleep, who brought him to this place and pain? He felt a burning pain all over his body, and it wasn't just in one place. A trace of panic flashed through Zhao Li's eyes. He hurriedly ran to the bathroom and took off his coat. He turned his back to the mirror and looked at his own back. Red scars. Streaks of red scars had even broken through his skin. They were like red snakes that coiled around his back. Every single one of these scars was the source of a burning pain. Zhao Lu only felt that his head was still very heavy. What happened in the process of him losing consciousness? He couldn't have fallen asleep for no reason. Was it Dong Xiaofeng? Subconsciously, Zhao Lu picked up the phone and opened the social media app. On the way, Dong Xiaofeng used the excuse of leaving the phone with a friend to persuade Zhao Lu to add him as a friend. "What did you do to me?" After sending the message, Zhao Lu held the phone with both hands and stared at the screen. Time passed by. Suddenly, the screen flashed. A photo popped up. In the photo, Zhao Lu saw himself. He instantly felt a chill run down his spine and his face turned pale. In the photo, he was naked and kneeling on the ground. There was a collar around his neck. The collar was connected to a chain and was being held by a woman. The woman was wearing a very revealing leather jacket and a butterfly-shaped mask. Dong Xiaofeng. "You son of a bitch, what did you do to me?" However, before he could finish typing the message, the screen flashed again and again. One photo after another appeared on the screen of Zhao Li's phone. In the photo, Zhao Lu had an intoxicated expression on his face. He was either lying on the ground or lying on the ground, moaning loudly. He was like a tamed pet that was being wantonly toyed with by the queen-like woman. He was unable to continue typing the unfinished message. Zhao Li's hands seemed to have been drained of strength, and he leaned against the wall and slid down to sit down. At this moment, the notifications had stopped. Instead, a video appeared. Zhao Li's hands trembled as he tapped on the video. In the video, The woman's laughter was loud and clear. She waved the whip and lashed Zhao Li's body again and again. Does it feel good, little puppy? Good, good. Do you want this sister to hit you a few more times? Yes. Bark like a dog, bark. Woof, woof, woof. Unbearable images and filthy words. They were not censored. Dong, 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 dong. The other party requested a voice call. Zhao Li picked up the phone with trembling hands and accepted the call. The anger in his heart made him roar. Dong Xiaofeng. You son of a bitch. How am I son of a bitch? This woman must have at least 10,000 yuan to play with. What? Is her body not good enough? As a brother, I'm not bad, right? Dong Xiaofeng. What do you want to do? Zhao Li, I won't talk nonsense with you. The people that I, Dong Xiaofeng, want to bully have never resisted. Listen carefully. From now on, you will do whatever I ask you to do. Even if I ask you to strip naked, you better not say no. No way. Think carefully. You are a good student. TSK, TSK, if these photos and videos are posted outside. What do you think those teachers and students who think you are good will think of you? This man is so dirty. I heard that you have an older sister. How about I send some to your sister? Don't worry. There are more shocking things to come. Do you want me to let you have a look first, classmate Zhao Li? How dare you? Zhao Li's eyes were about to burst. Then see if I dare or not. Remember, playing with me is like trying to break an egg against a jade stone. If you break, at most I will be dirty, and it will be clean with a wipe. Before class tomorrow, go to the West District and buy a set of fried dumplings from Huangshan Lu. Remember, before class. Dong Xiaofeng. Young Master Dong. The other party refuses to communicate with you. The other party refuses to communicate with you. The other party refuses to communicate with you. Zhao Li's hands dropped down at once, and he reached out to grab his hair, his head, and knocked it against the wall. He sat there motionless, as though he had lost his soul, and his eyes were lifeless. But the phone rang again. Zhao Li twisted his stiff neck and glanced at the phone. It was a call from Zhang Xiaoqin. His eyes lit up at once, and the phone rang a few times before it was connected. Everything was instinctive. Little Li, what's wrong with you? You haven't come over for so long. Did something happen? It was a worried and anxious tone. Zhao Li's heart trembled. He tried to force himself to smile, but the voice that came out of his throat was hoarse. It's nothing, sis. I'm fine. Smile. What's wrong with you? Oh, maybe I just woke up. Zhao Li took a deep breath carefully. I have an exam in 2 days, so I went to the library to read in the afternoon. Maybe I was too tired, so I fell asleep. I just woke up, and my throat feels a little uncomfortable. Is that so? I told you not to work so hard. Zhang Xiaoqin sighed and said, How about this? I'll let the people from the center help me out, and then I'll take a taxi back. You don't have to come and pick me up. It's too late. No, it's fine. I'll come over now. Zhao Li quickly got up and looked at the bruises all over his body in the mirror. He gritted his teeth and began to put on his clothes. I'll be there soon, sis. Just wait for a while. I'm worried about you being alone. All right, there's no need to rush. I got it. Zhao Li took a deep breath, dressed neatly, lowered his head, and hurried out of the Shihai restaurant. Dong Xiaofeng. Young Master Dong. In a private room of the bar, a beast-like roar came from the phone, and then the call was directly turned off by Dong Xiaofeng. After this, Dong Xiaofeng's 2 teammates burst into laughter. I can already imagine the look on that coward's face when he goes crazy. Too funny, young Master Phone. This move of yours is really amazing. Yes, I reckon that coward must be hiding and crying right now. What's there to cry about? Maybe he's looking at his wonderful display right now. And I'll take another shot? Ha ha ha. Dong Xiaofeng didn't say anything and only sneered at the 2 guys who were laughing. Then, he casually picked up a bottle of beer and slowly drank it. His teammate stopped laughing. But young Master Phone, I thought you would post these photos and videos tomorrow. Why? Do you really want Zhao Li to work like a horse for you? Dong Xiaofeng said indifferently. If I post them now, I'll just play with them once. But as long as I have these things, I can play with them however I want for the next few years. Isn't it good to have more toys in school? His teammate said, Isn't it too cheap to just let him buy fried bun tomorrow? The other teammate slapped his head. Idiot. Young Master Feng wants to woo the beauty of the faculty next door this time, and the bun is for her to eat. If I don't let this coward buy it, are you going to buy it yourself? As he said that, he looked at Dong Xiaofeng and said flatteringly, Young Master Feng, these photos, why don't you send me a few too and let me play with them? If that's the case, Young Master Feng, give me a copy too. Dong Xiaofeng gave him a copy. Keep an eye on him, don't cripple him. There's still a long way to go. Got it. Then, the music in the private room started to play, and the few escorts also started to enter the room. Sister, it's been a long day. I'm tired. Get some water. After washing Zhang Xiaoqin's feet and massaging, Zhao Lu helped Zhang Xiaoqin lie down and covered her with a blanket. Then, he turned off the lights and went out. Yua, don't go to sleep later. If you collapse from exhaustion, I don't know how to take care of you. Zhang Xiaoqin, who was lying on the bed, turned around and looked at Zhao Lu as she reminded him carefully. I know, Zhao Lu replied softly and closed the door of the room. His smile, his calmness, at this moment he finally couldn't maintain it. Zhao Lu stood in front of Zhang Xiaoqin's room, his palm pressed against the door, slowly sliding down, grabbing, until his knuckles turned white. He stood there for a long time before returning to the room. He took off his clothes, then found some medicine and started to wipe the wounds on his body. The moment the medicine touched the wounds, the burning pain made Zhao Lu clench his teeth. Zhao Li's eyes burst out with terrifying hatred. At this moment, as if something was calling him, he subconsciously raised his head and looked at the top of the wardrobe, the boxy stuff there. He didn't know who sent the thing in the box. Perhaps it was just a prank, or perhaps it was something else. But he didn't dare to casually deal with the thing in the box. His intuition told him that the thing inside the box was real. The description of the silver pistol written on the paper card that he discarded, word by word, emerged clearly in Zhao Li's mind. He stood up abruptly, but his movement was too big that he bumped into the desk. The desk shook and the calendar on the desk fell down. When Zhao Lu saw the number circled in red on the calendar, he immediately sat down dejectedly and calmed himself down. I can't take the risk. He took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. When Chun Mingming returned home, no one was there. Unlike Zhou Yuxing's father, Chun Mingming's mother had good achievements in her career. Although his mother and Zhou Yuxing divorced a few months ago, they had been living separately for a long time. They bought the house less than a year ago and spent a lot of money on it in a bustling area. Looking at the situation, his mother probably wouldn't come back tonight. Chun Mingming took a bottle of water from the fridge and returned to his room. He sat in front of his desk, and the events that happened after he met Tara flashed through his mind. He then shook his head and began to tidy up his things. Everything on his table was neatly tidied up. Even the bottle that had been placed on the table had the words on the label facing the edge of the table. Chun Mingming pulled open the drawer and took out a sketchbook. Flipping it open, one of the pages was a sketch he drew in the Riverside corridor a few days ago. His drawing skills were good, and it could be said to be a super realistic style.